The camera opens on a cathedral of white and blue, an endless expanse of sea ice fractured into shifting mosaics. From above, the flows appear like shards of a shattered mirror adrift on a dark ocean canvas. The stillness is broken by a sudden movement, a line of sleek black shapes knifing just below the surface, their white eye patches glowing like lanterns in the cold water. The pod of orcas, silent and deliberate, rises toward a lone seal sprawled lazily on a small ice platform. Then, with uncanny precision, the orcas turn broadside and begin to churn their tails in unison. The water lifts, bulges, and finally heaves forward as a sculpted wave. The flow rocks violently, tipping the seal off balance, and in the next instant, the animal slides helplessly into the freezing sea, straight into the jaws of the waiting hunters. It is not simply a kill, it is choreography. Each member of the pod knew the rhythm, the timing, and the spacing required to craft a perfect wave. The act is not instinctive in the crude sense, it is learned, refined, and rehearsed across generations. In this frozen theater, we are witnessing a form of cultural transmission as complex and nuanced as anything seen on land. These are the ice whisperers, orcas whose mastery of water itself transforms survival into art. Yet the question lingers, why do orcas from one part of the world hunt so differently from their cousins elsewhere? In Antarctica, they sculpt waves. In Norway's fjords, they herd herring into dense, shimmering spheres, striking with tails that sound like thunder underwater. Off New Zealand, they flip stingrays belly up with surgical precision. In the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in salmon, timing their pursuit with the shifting tides. No single hunting technique defines them. Instead, orcas are partitioned into clans and ecotypes, each bearing its own dialect, diet, and traditions. These differences are not dictated by genetics alone, but by culture, learned behaviors passed down from mothers to calves, as carefully preserved as oral histories in human societies. Underwater, the view shifts from aerial grandeur to intimate close-up. We see an orca mother nudging her calf toward a chunk of ice, where another juvenile seal clings nervously. The adult signals with subtle body movements, a tail twitch, a shift of pectoral fins, cues that the calf mimics awkwardly. The young one thrusts but creates only a ripple, its miniature wave collapsing into froth. No matter. The lesson is in progress. The mother completes the maneuver, knocking the seal into the sea, but deliberately holds back from the capture. The calf surges, clumsy but eager, and makes its first attempt at predation. Like a parent letting a child wobble on training wheels, the matriarch has engineered a safe rehearsal. In this frozen classroom, survival is not simply taught. It is curated, paced, and reinforced through play, patience, and practice. Science has shown that orcas live in matrilineal societies, with pods often led by elder females. These grandmothers, whose lifespans can exceed 80 years, hold reservoirs of ecological memory. During times of scarcity, their experience can guide the pod to long-forgotten hunting grounds or salmon runs. This phenomenon, known as the grandmother effect, underscores a truth. Culture and continuity matter as much as brute strength. A pod that forgets how to fish in lean years will not endure. A pod guided by memory survives storms of both ice and famine. But culture does not thrive in silence. Orcas are among the most vocal of marine mammals, producing whistles, pulsed calls, and clicks. Each clan possesses a distinct dialect, recognizable in both rhythm and tone, like regional accents in human speech. Recordings reveal that calves babble like human infants, practicing the cadences of their pod until they can echo them perfectly. More than communication, these dialects serve as cultural markers, identifying not just individuals, but entire lineages. In Norwegian waters, pods speaking one dialect herd herring with carousel feeding, while others with different calls pursue seals and porpoises. It is as though language itself partitions their culture, binding them together in identity while keeping traditions distinct. A slow-motion shot dives deeper, following an orca as it drifts silently through kelp forests. Here, brute force would betray them. The rustling fronds amplify sound, scattering fish long before a strike. Instead, the orca mutes its echolocation, relying instead on passive listening. With sonar switched off, it becomes a shadow gliding through green corridors. A quick lunge and a harbor seal is seized before it can slip through the maze of kelp. The strategy is not universal. It is local knowledge, a whisper shared among those who know these forests and their acoustics. It is not evolution hardwired in DNA, but innovation, a cultural adaptation tailored to place. Elsewhere, orcas have perfected the art of flipping sharks onto their backs, inducing tonic immobility, a trance-like paralysis that renders the formidable predators helpless. This tactic exposes the liver, a nutrient-rich organ prized by orcas, which they can surgically remove with astonishing precision. In this we glimpse another truth. Orcas are not reckless apex predators, charging headlong into danger. They are risk-averse tacticians, avoiding injury through clever manipulation of physiology. An injured orca cannot hunt, and in the wild, a single misstep can mean death. The myth of reckless dominance collapses under the weight of their caution. To be apex does not mean to be careless. It means to survive longer than others through strategies honed by intelligence. Scientists studying orca behavior often note their use of geography like architects. Pods in coastal waters have been documented timing their hunts with tidal shifts, ambushing prey at choke points where currents funnel fish. Others exploit steep bathymetric edges, underwater cliffs that trap schools of herring. The pod's choreography takes advantage of these natural structures, transforming the landscape itself into part of the hunt. Such behavior speaks of foresight and teaching, for calves learn these geographies not by instinct but by repeated practice, guided by their elders. And yet, even as we marvel at their cultural complexity, threats loom. Orcas, being long-lived and high on the food chain, suffer from the insidious accumulation of pollutants such as polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs. These toxic chemicals linger in fat stores and leach into calves through mother's milk. Some populations in European waters are now so contaminated that their reproductive potential is collapsing. Noise pollution adds another invisible layer of danger. The constant drone of ship engines masks the orca's calls, blinding their sonar and severing the delicate thread of communication that binds their culture. Imagine trying to teach a child a song while deafened by static. This is the challenge orcas face in oceans heavy with human sound. Conservation then cannot be framed only as protecting individuals. It must also safeguard traditions. When salmon runs collapse, resident orcas in the Pacific Northwest lose not just food but identity, for their entire culture revolves around salmon. To save the fish is to save the dialects, the memories, the hunting strategies, and the very essence of those clans. Protecting prey cultures becomes synonymous with protecting predator cultures. The chapter closes where it began, on the ice floe, but now with a wider lens. The seal is gone, the pod disperses into dark water, and only ripples remain where predator and prey converged. What endures, however, is the invisible legacy, the knowledge passed from mother to calf, the dialect woven into calls, the strategies rehearsed through play. Orcas are not bound merely by blood, but by culture, crafting a lineage of wisdom that outlasts lifetimes. They are, in truth, the ice whisperers, sculptors of water, architects of memory, and proof that the ocean's greatest predator is also its greatest teacher. The ocean under moonlight transforms into something both alien and intimate. The reef, so vibrant by day, is reduced to outlines of coral silhouettes and wavering shadows on pale sand. Above, the silver disk of the moon casts a shifting lattice across the water's surface, while below, a single silhouette moves with steady authority along the reef's edge. Broad head, blunt snout, striped flanks fading like a phantom's stripes. The unmistakable form of the tiger shark patrols the boundary where reef structure dissolves into open blue. The camera dips beneath, and for a fleeting instant the soundtrack shifts. Faint electric clicks ripple across a recorder, capturing the shark's perception of the unseen. This is not vision nor scent, but electro-reception, the ability to feel life itself through the whispers of muscle contractions and beating hearts. In this nocturnal theater, the tiger shark is not a wanderer. It is a compass, guided by forces of iron, blood, and magnetic pull. At first glance, tiger sharks appear as the quintessential opportunists of the sea. Their diets read like a shipwreck's manifest. Sea turtles, seabirds that fall exhausted onto the surface, schooling fish, rays, crabs, carrion from whales, and even, in rare accounts, inanimate debris mistaken for food. This omnivory has earned them a reputation as the garbage cans of the sea. Yet to dismiss them as indiscriminate feeders misses the nuance of their strategy. Opportunism, in ecological terms, is not chaos. It is mastery of unpredictability. Tiger sharks thrive not by following a single script, but by adapting their tactics to whatever environment, season, or prey is available. Night along the reef edge demonstrates this clearly. A turtle rises from the shallows to breathe, its silhouette breaking the shimmering surface. The shark's pace changes. No wild rush, no wasted movement. Instead, it drifts upward, using its counter-shaded body, dark above, pale below, to merge seamlessly with the gloom. The strike is sudden but measured, jaws open, teeth designed not for slicing like a great white's but for crushing, their broad, serrated edges able to shear through shell and bone alike. This dentition, unique among sharks, allows tiger sharks to exploit hard-shelled prey that others cannot access. Each tooth is a compromise between saw and cleaver, evolution's perfect tool for cracking armor. But food is not always a battle. During daylight, tiger sharks have been observed approaching cleaning stations. Coral outcrops where small reef fish such as wrasses and gobies perform the intimate service of removing parasites from their skin and gill slits. Here, the fearsome predator becomes curiously passive. With fins held slightly out and mouth relaxed, the shark hovers, allowing cleaner fish to dart inside its jaws unharmed. This etiquette demonstrates a balance of power, the predator temporarily subdued by the ecological necessity of maintenance. Even for apex hunters, hygiene dictates humility. Yet the greatest mystery of tiger sharks lies not in their varied diet, but in their journeys. Unlike reef-bound species, tiger sharks travel immense distances, crossing what marine biologists call blue deserts, open stretches of pelagic water seemingly featureless and empty. And yet, year after year, females return to the same secluded lagoons to give birth, sometimes traveling thousands of miles in looping migrations. How does a shark, devoid of obvious landmarks, navigate with such precision? The answer lies in a suite of senses that humans can barely fathom. The geomagnetic field of the Earth, born from the swirling iron of the planet's core, provides a map inscribed in invisible lines across the sea. Experiments with tagged tiger sharks reveal that they use this geomagnetic imprint as a compass, orienting themselves as though the ocean were etched with roads no human eye can see. Combined with their acute olfactory system, capable of detecting trace molecules of blood from miles away, and their tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer in the retina that enhances vision in near darkness, tiger sharks are navigators equipped to read a world of invisible signals. This mastery becomes most evident when following gravid females. Tracking studies using satellite tags show that they undertake looping voyages across basins, sometimes spanning over 1,000 miles, only to arrive with uncanny precision at shallow lagoons where their pups will be born. These nurseries, often turbid with suspended sediment, are not idyllic by human standards. The water is murky, visibility poor, and the substrate silty. Yet for neonates, these conditions are salvation. The turbidity reduces visibility for larger predators, giving the pups a measure of concealment during their vulnerable early months. Shallow water also warms more quickly, accelerating growth and metabolism. For the mothers, these lagoons are chosen with care, the culmination of a migration that balances risk, memory, and geomagnetic guidance. The pups themselves emerge into a world already treacherous. Measuring only about 2 to 3 feet at birth, they are miniature replicas of their parents, complete with faint stripes that fade with age. They spend their first months hugging the shallows, where mangroves and seagrass meadows offer some cover. Mortality is high, yet those that survive grow quickly, fueled by the very opportunism that defines their species. Human interaction with tiger sharks has long been shaped by fear. Stories of attacks, exaggerated by media, paint them as mindless killers. In truth, unprovoked bites are rare, and most encounters result from mistaken identity or investigative nips. Statistically, the risk of a fatal encounter is vanishingly small compared to everyday dangers on land. Scientists tracking tiger sharks note that in areas with high human activity, the sharks often avoid direct approach, demonstrating a caution not reflected in headlines. Yet fear persists, coloring conservation efforts with bias. Ironically, human fishing poses the greater threat. Longline fisheries targeting tuna and swordfish often capture tiger sharks as bycatch, their fins sometimes harvested for trade. To mitigate this, new technologies such as smart hooks are being tested. These hooks are coated with rare earth metals that disrupt the electroreception of sharks, deterring them from biting while leaving target species unaffected. Early results suggest promise, offering a glimpse of coexistence in fisheries where balance has long tilted toward destruction. The ecological role of tiger sharks extends beyond predation. By consuming weakened turtles, injured seabirds, or carrion, they act as oceanic janitors, recycling nutrients and preventing the spread of disease. In seagrass ecosystems, their presence alone shapes behavior. Dugongs and sea turtles, wary of tiger sharks, graze more cautiously, preventing overgrazing of seagrass beds. This top-down control exemplifies the ecology of fear, where the threat of predation regulates ecosystem balance even without constant predation. Remove tiger sharks, and the structure of coastal ecosystems begins to unravel. Cinematically, the narrative returns to the moonlit reef. The tiger shark passes along the edge, eyes glowing faintly as the tapetum lucidum reflects stray photons. It veers briefly toward a floating seabird, exhausted from migration and stranded on the waves. With a single surge, the bird is gone, absorbed into the cycle. Nothing wasted, nothing predictable. This, too, is the compass at work. Opportunism fused with precision, adaptation honed by invisible maps. As dawn breaks, the reef glows once more with color. Yet the tiger shark is already gone, heading into open water, following a route written not on paper, but in iron, blood, and Earth's magnetic breath. Its journey is not random but inevitable, a 1,000-mile arc that will one day end in the shallow nursery lagoons where life begins anew. For all their fearsome reputation, tiger sharks embody not chaos but continuity. Navigators bound by maps older than memory, guardians of ecosystems through predation, and proof that survival is as much about sensing hidden truths as it is about seizing visible prey. They are, in essence, the compass of blood and iron, predators guided not by hunger alone, but by forces invisible and eternal, sculpted by evolution to navigate a world most of us will never see, yet utterly dependent on their silent patrols. The camera opens on the seafloor at dusk, where coral rubble and discarded shells scatter like bones of an ancient battlefield. From between two stones, something stirs, not with the sudden assertiveness of a predator, but with a careful, deliberate choreography. A coconut half rolls forward, its inside hollowed and smooth. Then another shell, perfectly matched, clicks into place. Out of this improvised armor, a pair of eyes peers, each orb swiveling independently as if studying two worlds at once. Slowly, 8 arms unfurl from beneath the shell halves, and the creature reveals itself, an octopus carrying its fortress across the sand. It advances like a soldier behind a shield, then halts. In a sudden, explosive movement, the octopus discards the shell, spreads its webbed arms into a parachute, and pounces upon an unsuspecting crab. The transformation is instantaneous. Skin that was smooth and pale becomes a forest of spiky projections, color flaring into mottled camouflage. In seconds, the crab is subdued, dragged beneath the living cloak. This is not simply a hunt. It is a code being written and rewritten in real time, a language of deception, improvisation, and escape. The octopus has long been called the escape artist of the ocean, but its talents are not mere tricks. They are the result of an intelligence so different from our own that to understand it is to glimpse an alien mind evolving beneath the waves. The core mystery lies in the very structure of its nervous system. In humans, the brain is centralized, an organ commanding the body with singular authority. In octopuses, the arrangement is radically different. Nearly 3/5 of their neurons are distributed through their arms. Each arm contains neural circuits capable of processing information, executing movements, and even initiating reflexive decisions without direct orders from the brain. To watch an octopus forage is to witness this distributed intelligence in action. While the central brain focuses on strategy, monitoring predators, planning escape routes, the arms conduct independent searches, probing crevices, testing textures, and sometimes even competing with one another. It is as though the octopus has multiple semi-autonomous minds, each extending through a limb, networked into a greater whole. Thinking with arms is not a metaphor. It is biological reality. This decentralized intelligence gives rise to extraordinary behaviors. Octopuses are among the few invertebrates known to use tools. The coconut shell carry is one example, but others abound, piling rocks at the entrance of dens to barricade themselves, collecting discarded bottles or shells to fashion temporary shelters, and arranging objects into what scientists call middens, decorative piles of prey remains, shells, and stones, which may serve as both camouflage and territorial markers. Even in the absence of tool-making instincts seen in primates, octopuses invent their own architecture, their own private fortresses beneath the sand. Most octopuses are solitary by nature, but exceptions reveal another layer of complexity. Off the coast of Australia, divers discovered a site nicknamed Octopuses, where dozens of individuals coexist in close proximity. Here, octopuses share dens, engage in displays of dominance, and even appear to tolerate each other in ways rarely observed. Whether these hubs are driven by resource abundance, safety, or social flexibility remains debated. But the sight of normally solitary animals assembling in loose neighborhoods hints at a hidden capacity for social adaptation. These gatherings may be less like cities and more like uneasy truces, an experiment in coexistence written into the octopus's shifting code. At night, the octopus's world sharpens into drama. Armed with chromatophores, iridophores, and papillae, its skin becomes a living canvas. Chromatophores, tiny sacs of pigment controlled by muscles, expand and contract to paint colors across the body in milliseconds. Beneath them, iridophores reflect ambient light, producing shimmering blues and greens that seem to pulse with movement. Papillae, muscular projections, alter skin texture, transforming a smooth mantle into spiked ridges or knobby coral mimicry. Together, this tri-layer system allows octopuses to vanish into their background or explode into intimidation displays that suggest danger. What is remarkable is the speed. Patterns can shift so quickly they appear like flickers of thought externalized on the skin. This dynamic skin even betrays secrets while the animal sleeps. Researchers have filmed octopuses changing color during slumber, their bodies cycling through patterns associated with hunting, fleeing, or mating. Some scientists speculate that this might represent a form of dreaming, the rehearsal of experience encoded in flashes of pigment. If true, it means that even in unconscious states, the octopus remains a storyteller, painting narratives across its body that only it can interpret. Yet intelligence in the octopus is not merely a product of neurons. Recent discoveries reveal that octopuses engage in extensive RNA editing, a process where genetic instructions are rewritten on the fly, altering the proteins produced in their nervous systems. Unlike most animals which rely on DNA as a fixed blueprint, octopuses seem to treat their genome as a draft to be modified as circumstances demand. This molecular flexibility may underpin their cognitive versatility, allowing rapid adaptation of neural function without waiting for generations of evolution. In a sense, their intelligence is inscribed not only in brains, but in the mutable text of their biology. Deception lies at the heart of their survival. Octopuses employ motion camouflage, adjusting their movements to blend seamlessly with background currents, creating the illusion of drifting seaweed. Others deploy the passing cloud pattern, sending a wave of dark pigment across their body that mimics the shadow of something overhead, startling prey into hesitation. The mimic octopus takes deception to its zenith, contorting its body into shapes that resemble venomous lionfish, flatfish, or sea snakes, discouraging predators through false identity. Such acts of impersonation blur the line between performance and survival, making the octopus both actor and stage in a theater of deception. The paradox of the octopus is that despite its brilliance, its life is heartbreakingly brief. Most species live only 1 to 2 years. After mating, females enter a terminal phase known as senescence. They guard their egg clutches with obsessive devotion, refusing food while aerating and cleaning the embryos until hatching. When the young disperse, the mother dies, her body exhausted by sacrifice. Males fare no better. After mating, they decline rapidly, their purpose fulfilled in a single act. This short lifespan means that octopuses live in a cycle of boom and bust. Populations can surge in favorable conditions but collapse just as quickly, their survival tied to the productivity of the ecosystems they inhabit. This fragility complicates human interactions. Octopus fisheries exist in many parts of the world, supplying food and trade, yet the sustainability of such harvests is precarious. Because populations fluctuate naturally, heavy fishing pressure can wipe out local stocks before they rebound. The newest frontier, octopus farming, raises even deeper ethical questions. Confining such intelligent, solitary creatures in tanks for mass production forces them into conditions utterly alien to their biology. Their intelligence, so rooted in exploration and manipulation, risks becoming a curse when denied stimulation. The debate over whether octopuses should be farmed is as much an ethical reckoning as a conservation concern, challenging us to consider whether intelligence in other species demands a different kind of respect. The camera returns to the seafloor, where the octopus has finished its crab. Empty shells are pushed aside, a midden built with unconscious artistry. Then, with a flicker, its skin smooths again, colors melting into sand as though the creature were dissolving into the landscape. Only the faint displacement of sediment betrays its departure. The ocean holds no locks that can contain it, no puzzle it will not attempt. Each escape, each deception, each improvised tool is a line in the octopus's living code. To call the octopus an escape artist is not mere metaphor. Its entire existence is defined by evasion, from predators, from confinement, from predictability. But within that code lies something deeper, a demonstration that intelligence can evolve along paths alien to our own, shaped not by bones and centralized brains, but by arms that think, skin that speaks, and genes that rewrite themselves. The octopus reminds us that intelligence is not one story, but many, written in ink across the shifting canvas of life. They are, in the truest sense, the escape artist's code, creatures that live briefly yet brilliantly, defying the constraints of body and environment through a symphony of improvisation. To encounter one is to glimpse the ocean's most enigmatic script, written not on stone or parchment, but on living, mutable flesh, dissolving into the water before we can fully read it. The frame opens in silence, suspended over a sandy seabed scattered with shells. A small snail grazes slowly on a patch of algae, unaware of the predator concealed within a burrow just centimeters away. From the darkness, two stalked eyes pivot like periscopes, rotating independently to lock onto the prey. A mantis shrimp, coiled with the potential of a loaded crossbow, calculates distance with mechanical precision. In an instant, one arm unfurls. The strike is so fast that cameras capturing 10,000 frames per second barely hold it. The club smashes against the snail's shell, but the impact is not the only force at play. The strike collapses the water around it, generating a cavitation bubble that implodes with the heat of a star's surface. For the briefest fraction of a second, a flash of light illuminates the snail, and then the shell shatters. What unfolds is not just violence, but physics at its most extreme, condensed into a creature no longer than a human hand. The mantis shrimp has become a legend of the reef, celebrated for its power. Yet the deeper mystery is not merely how it strikes, but how it perceives the world it lives in. Where humans see a rainbow of visible colors, mantis shrimp see an entirely different spectrum. Their eyes contain up to 16 types of photoreceptor cells compared to the 3 in humans. They perceive ultraviolet light, polarized light, and gradients of color invisible to our spectrum. For them, The reef is overlaid with information beyond our imagination. Secret signals painted in bands of polarization and ultraviolet reflection, a language coded onto shells and carapaces that humans are blind to. The true puzzle is how they use this vision to communicate, to navigate territorial disputes, and perhaps even to express identity. The behavior of mantis shrimp reveals this hidden language. Two males encountering each other rarely begin with combat. Instead, they engage in ritualized displays, posturing, extending clubs, flashing colored markings on their carapaces. Sometimes they even engage in a peculiar behavior known as Telson sparring, in which they take turns striking each other's armored tailplate. The exchanges are violent in appearance but highly ritualized, designed to test strength without causing fatal injury. These contests reveal a paradox. A creature built with weapons capable of breaking aquarium glass often prefers to avoid true battle. For the mantis shrimp, survival is not about unchecked aggression, but about choosing when violence is worth the cost. That calculation is built into their biology. Each strike, while devastating, carries risk. The clubs, though reinforced with remarkable armor, can crack or shatter if overused. A damaged club is catastrophic. It leaves the shrimp unable to hunt effectively. Thus, ritualized combat is not weakness but intelligence, an ecological strategy that minimizes risk while preserving dominance hierarchies. By measuring an opponent through ritualized exchange, the mantis shrimp saves itself from the ruinous consequences of unnecessary fights. It is, in effect, cost-benefit analysis written into instinct. The weapon itself is a marvel of engineering. The club is reinforced with a helicoid structure, layers of chitin fibers arranged like the spiral of a seashell. This design dissipates stress across multiple planes, preventing cracks from spreading. Engineers studying these structures have sought to replicate them in advanced materials for body armor and aerospace technology. The strike is powered by a saddle-shaped structure that stores elastic energy, releasing it like a spring when triggered. The acceleration is so extreme that the club moves faster than a bullet fired from a handgun. In water, such speed is unthinkable, yet the mantis shrimp has achieved it through millions of years of refinement. But violence is only part of the mantis shrimp story. They are also engineers of the seabed. Burrows dug into sand or mud serve as both fortresses and workshops. Within these chambers, mantis shrimp arrange pebbles, shells and fragments of coral, sometimes using them to reinforce walls. The burrow provides refuge not only from predators but also from rivals, and many species retreat there to molt in safety. During molting, the shrimp is soft and vulnerable, its clubs temporarily unusable. The burrow becomes a cocoon where transformation takes place and where patience is the difference between life and death. The eyes of mantis shrimp are perhaps their most enigmatic feature. Perched on stalks, they rotate independently, granting nearly 360-degree vision. Each eye is divided into zones that separately analyze color, polarization, and motion. Their ability to detect polarized light allows them to see reflections of fish scales or the glint of transparent prey. Even more astonishing is their use of polarized signals to communicate. Some species display patches on their bodies that reflect circularly polarized light, a type of polarization invisible to almost every other animal. To human eyes, these patches are dull. To another mantis shrimp, they are beacons, markers of identity and status. It is as though the reef holds two layers of reality, the one we can see and the one known only to these secretive predators. Neurobiology adds another twist. Mantis shrimp process motion differently than most animals. Their brains use shortcuts, detecting changes without analyzing each frame in sequence, allowing them to respond faster than predators or prey. This neural economy complements their weapon, ensuring that the strike lands with perfect timing. In a reef where milliseconds determine survival, the mantis shrimp's nervous system is honed for speed as much as power. The ecological role of mantis shrimp is not to dominate by numbers, but to influence through presence. By preying on hard-shelled animals such as snails, crabs, and mollusks, they regulate populations that would otherwise overgraze algae or compete unchecked. Their burrows alter sediment structure, increasing water flow and oxygen penetration. They are, in their own way, engineers of microhabitats, shaping reef ecology not only through predation, but also through construction. Even in reproduction, their strategies reveal nuance. Some species form monogamous pairs, sharing a burrow and taking turns guarding eggs. Others lead solitary lives, investing fully in territorial defense. The diversity of lifestyles across mantis shrimp species suggests that their intelligence and adaptability extend beyond combat. They are creatures capable of evolving not just tools, but behaviors suited to varied ecological niches. The paradox remains that a creature so often defined by its violence frequently avoids it. For the mantis shrimp, restraint is not moral, but practical. Each decision to fight or not to fight is weighed against the risk of injury, the cost of repair, the time lost to molting, and the opportunities missed. This kind of decision-making blurs the line between instinct and intelligence, reminding us that survival often favors calculation over brutality. The chapter closes as it began, returning to the ultra-slow motion strike. Another snail falls victim to the flashing club, the cavitation bubble exploding with light like a microstar in the darkness. Yet the shrimp does not linger. It drags its prize into the burrow, vanishing as swiftly as it appeared. The reef resumes its silence, as though nothing had happened. But for those who can see the reef as the mantis shrimp sees it, overlaid with ultraviolet, striped with polarization, alive with signals invisible to us, the world is anything but silent. It is a symphony of lightning strikes and coded messages, a realm where power and restraint, violence and communication exist in constant balance. The mantis shrimp is not merely a weapon. It is a translator of hidden languages, perceiving worlds layered upon our own, choosing when to unleash destruction and when to hold back. To call it the language of lightning is to acknowledge that it embodies both the brilliance of nature's engineering and the subtlety of nature's diplomacy. It is a reminder that in the ocean, the most powerful beings are often those who know precisely when not to use their power. The frame opens in the dim blue beneath a thermocline, that shimmering boundary where warm surface water slides above colder depths. Here the light softens and the soundscape sharpens. A male humpback hangs suspended, head tilted slightly downward, pectoral fins spread like wings. Then, with a slow exhalation, the water trembles. Notes cascade from his throat in a haunting series of pulses, moans and clicks, some deep enough to rattle the camera housing, others so high-pitched they shimmer like glass. The song unfurls across the water column, wrapping the thermocline in concentric waves. Above, the surface reflects faint echoes, while below the sound travels unbroken into the abyss. It is music, but it is also mapping, sound stitching space together in ways no eye could chart. For humpbacks, song is not mere noise. It is a cultural artifact, a composition reshaped year by year. What makes it remarkable is its contagious evolution. In one ocean basin, a particular theme might spread like a chart-topping tune, migrating eastward or westward as males adopt and adapt it. Within a season, entire populations can discard one motif for another, as though the ocean itself were listening to a shared broadcast. The mystery is profound. Why would a whale thousands of miles away alter its song to mirror another it has never met? Theories suggest sexual selection, the allure of novelty to females, or competitive pressure among males. But deeper still is the implication that humpbacks maintain not just individual repertoires, but shared acoustic traditions, a collective memory carried in sound. Waves that drift like migratory roots themselves. And then, in a single edit, the camera rises into chaos. A pod of humpbacks circles a shimmering mass of herring, their bodies threading upward in a spiraling column. One whale exhales a ring of bubbles, the gas rising in perfect arcs that merge into a cylindrical wall. Another trumpets, a sharp blast that drives the fish inward, confusion amplified by the cage of bubbles. Above, the surface trembles as the whales surge together, jaws gaping, throats ballooning with pleats that expand like accordions. The school vanishes in a single synchronized lunge, and the water erupts with silver scales flashing in the current. This is bubble net feeding, a behavior of cooperation as complex as any hunting strategy on land. What matters is not just the net, but the roles. One whale creates the bubbles, another gives the trumpet, others surge at precisely the right moment. These roles are not fixed but coordinated in the moment, a flexible alliance built on trust and memory. To understand how humpbacks feed is to marvel at biomechanics. Their jaws do not simply open, they unfold. Along the underside, grooves of expandable tissue, called ventral pleats, run from chin to belly. As the whale lunges, these pleats balloon outward, stretching many times their resting size, transforming the throat into a cavern that engulfs tens of tons of water and fish. Muscles and elastic fibers then contract, forcing the water out through baleen plates, fine keratin combs that sieve fish from sea. It is a feat of energy economics, a massive lunge consuming immense energy but yielding dense rewards if timed precisely. Too early and the fish scatter. Too late and the school slips away. Only by synchronizing with others, by aligning lunges with the choreography of the net, do humpbacks make the strategy profitable. Sound is as vital here as sight. Within the net, whales trumpet to drive prey, moan to signal ascent, and rumble to coordinate timing. Yet in other moments, their use of sound is astonishingly delicate. Calves swimming beside mothers have been recorded whispering, emitting faint, low-amplitude calls that barely carry beyond their mother's body. These whispers likely mask the pair from eavesdropping predators such as orcas, whose acute hearing could detect louder calls. The strategy reflects a spectrum of acoustic adaptation, from songs that stretch across hundreds of miles to whispers confined to a mother's flank. The propagation of sound in the ocean is itself a form of geography. Low-frequency notes can travel vast distances, refracting within the deep sound channel where temperature and pressure funnel waves horizontally. A single whale's song can, under ideal conditions, be heard hundreds of miles away. These acoustic highways allow whales to broadcast presence, perhaps even coordinate across dispersed populations. It is tempting to think of the ocean as silent space, but to humpbacks it is a map written in sound, every note revealing the dimensions of their world. The cultural element of song evolution remains one of the most striking discoveries in marine biology. Unlike birds, where song learning is often localized, humpbacks exhibit waves of innovation that spread across entire ocean basins. Researchers describe it as a hit parade, with new themes rising to dominance and older ones fading like forgotten choruses. This cultural contagion suggests a level of shared identity, of collective preference. It may be sexual selection, females drawn to novelty, males compelled to keep pace, but it may also serve as a marker of belonging, a way of embedding individual identity within a shared cultural fabric. Whatever the reason, it elevates humpbacks beyond instinct into the realm of culture, where memory and innovation intertwine. Yet these cartographers of song navigate a perilous modern ocean. Shipping lanes crisscross migratory routes, filling water with low-frequency noise that overlaps with whale communication. The rumble of propellers can mask songs, fragmenting communication across distances once bridged with ease. Ship strikes kill or maim humpbacks each year, collisions invisible to crews but devastating to the slow reproducing giants. Fishing gear adds another hazard. Ropes and nets entangle whales, wrapping around pectoral fins or baleen plates, restricting feeding and leading to exhaustion or drowning. The silent suffering of entanglement is as much a threat as hunting ever was. Solutions lie not in silence but in design. Proposals for quiet lanes, shipping corridors engineered to minimize noise, could offer whales acoustic sanctuaries where songs can travel unmasked. Advances in propeller design and hull modifications promise reductions in underwater noise. Smart gear in fisheries, designed to break under whale-scale tension, could mitigate entanglement. These measures are not luxuries but necessities if humpbacks are to continue their cultural traditions unbroken. Cinematically, the story returns to the singer beneath the thermocline. His song unfurls in layered stanzas, themes weaving into choruses that rise and fall. Above him, unseen, another whale hundreds of miles away may be altering its own song in response, adding a note, discarding a motif, reshaping the tradition. Across oceans, the music changes like tides, a living cartography of memory and invention. The chapter closes with the bubble net once more, seen from above. Spirals of silver fish collapse inward as whales surge upward, mouths gaping, pleats ballooning. Around them, the sea trembles not just with violence, but with resonance, songs overlapping with trumpets, whispers blending with rumbles. For humpbacks, survival is never just about flesh and scale. It is about sound, about the ability to draw maps across invisible horizons, to carry memory and melody, to define culture not with tools or artifacts, but with the architecture of song itself. They are, in the truest sense, the cartographers of song, giants who chart oceans with voices, who weave geography and culture into music that spreads across the planet, and who remind us that maps are not always drawn with lines on paper, but sometimes with notes echoing through saltwater corridors, carried farther than the eye can ever see. The water along the mangrove edge is still, tinted green by the canopy of roots above, and stirred only by the gentle ebb of tide. Beneath the surface, something almost invisible glides. Its bell is glass clear, its body little more than a ghost of tissue and water. The camera closes in, and only then do the details emerge. 4 stalked sensory clubs dangle from the corners of the cube-shaped bell. Each club houses not 1 but 6 eyes, arranged like an otherworldly chandelier. In total, 24 eyes peer out from this transparent hunter, some capable of detecting light, others capable of forming crude images, and still others sensitive to horizon lines. The effect is uncanny, a silent Medusa drifting through shallow waters with what looks like a city of eyes, each one watching, each one processing. This is the box jellyfish, one of the most enigmatic and lethal creatures of the coastal tropics. The opening puzzle is immediate. Why would a brainless animal possess so many eyes? Most jellyfish drift with only light-sensing organs to guide them, reacting to brightness or shadow. The box jellyfish, however, seems to navigate with purpose. Studies show it avoids mangrove routes, swims in consistent directions, and patrols shoreline corridors at dusk when small fish gather. To call it mindless is to miss the complexity encoded in its body. Somewhere within the soft lattice of nerves surrounding its bell, sensory input from 24 eyes is processed, interpreted, and acted upon. This is not vision in the human sense, but it is a system of perception and response sophisticated enough to demand reconsideration of what intelligence means. The daily rhythm of the box jellyfish is dictated by light. It prefers crepuscular hunts, rising toward shorelines in twilight hours when juvenile fish school in the safety of mangrove channels. Tentacles, nearly invisible, trail behind like fishing lines. They are armed with specialized cells, nematocysts, which can discharge in less than a millionth of a second. Each harpoon-like capsule ejects with explosive force, injecting venom potent enough to stun prey instantly. In some species, this venom has evolved to target vertebrates with terrifying efficiency, interfering with nerve signals and overwhelming cardiovascular systems. For small fish, there is no chance of escape. For humans unlucky enough to brush against these tentacles, the results can be catastrophic. And yet even here, nuance replaces myth. Box jellyfish do not roam beaches seeking human victims. Their patterns are deliberate but not malicious. Tentacles are deployed like invisible nets in the water column, spread in sheets to maximize the chance of contact with prey. When a fish brushes against them, the tentacle coils, drawing the victim toward the bell, where it is transported to the gastrovascular cavity for digestion. The process is methodical, a form of passive hunting that relies on biology more than chase. The danger to humans arises because our skin, nerve endings, and muscle tissues are highly susceptible to the same venom designed for fish. The venom itself is a molecular marvel. It contains proteins that punch holes in cell membranes, causing potassium to leak and triggering a cascade that leads to cardiovascular collapse. The speed is what makes it terrifying. In severe cases, a sting can induce heart failure within minutes. Yet even here, knowledge has rewritten the story. First aid once focused on applying fresh water or bandages, which worsened the sting. Now, science has shown that dousing with vinegar can deactivate unfired nematocysts, and continuous CPR can sustain victims until antivenom or hospital care is available. Education, not fear, is the most effective countermeasure against an animal whose danger lies in misunderstanding as much as venom. The eyes, though, remain the greatest enigma. Among the 6 per rhopalium, the sensory clubs, 2 are complex camera-type eyes, complete with corneas, lenses, and retinas. They face outward and downward, capable of forming crude but recognizable images of objects. Others are simple light-sensing pits. Together, they provide a mosaic of perception, enabling the jellyfish to orient toward light shafts, avoid obstacles, and maintain vertical orientation in shallow water. How can such vision exist without a brain to interpret it? The answer lies in distributed processing nodes called ganglia, localized clusters of neurons that integrate signals and trigger motor responses. The box jellyfish's bell margin contains a nerve ring, effectively a decentralized processing unit. Information flows into this network, and coordinated swimming pulses emerge. It is not thought as we know it, but it is decision-making nonetheless. An elegant reminder that intelligence can take forms alien to vertebrate expectations. Behavioral experiments support this view. In laboratory tanks, box jellyfish placed among obstacles swam with deliberate avoidance rather than random bouncing. They maintained orientation toward open water, suggesting the ability to map space visually, however simply. This distinguishes them sharply from true drifters, whose locomotion is governed almost entirely by current. The box jellyfish, by contrast, shows habitat preference, choosing mangrove edges and sandy shallows rich in fish nurseries. To call them mere floaters is a disservice. They are directional swimmers, guided by a city of eyes. The ecology of this predator is finely tuned to its environment. Mangroves and shallow lagoons provide a sheltered stage where juvenile fish abound. The box jellyfish's translucent body renders it nearly invisible in such habitats, while its eyes allow it to remain close to roots without entanglement. By timing its hunts at dawn and dusk, it exploits periods when prey are concentrated, yet visibility is low for fish. It is a master of marginal spaces, thriving where shoreline habitats provide both prey density and cover. The physiology of the sting also carries ecological meaning. Venom, this potent, is not wasted on invertebrate prey. Instead, its power suggests an arms race with agile fish capable of escaping lesser stings. The venom ensures instant immobilization, preventing fish from darting away and shredding fragile tentacles. Thus, lethality is not about excess but about efficiency. The box jellyfish's reputation as one of the most dangerous animals to humans is a side effect of an evolutionary bargain struck with fast-moving prey. Myths persist, however, portraying jellyfish as brainless, passive drifters swept by tides. The box jellyfish dismantles this image. With directional swimming, obstacle avoidance, and habitat selection, it demonstrates autonomy rarely acknowledged in cnidarians. Its eyes are not vestigial curiosities, but functional instruments shaping its behavior. In this light, the box jellyfish is not a primitive relic, but a specialized predator whose strategies rival those of far more celebrated animals. The conservation story is complex. Box jellyfish thrive in warm, shallow waters, and their presence often increases with human modification of coasts. Overfishing of competitors, construction of piers, and degradation of habitats can alter prey dynamics, sometimes inadvertently favoring jellyfish. Yet their relationship with humans is fraught, particularly in regions where tourism overlaps with their habitats. The challenge is not to eradicate, but to manage, through nets that block stingers from beaches, through education on first aid, and through respect for the ecological role they play. The chapter closes with a return to the mangrove edge. The box jellyfish pulses forward, tentacles trailing like translucent threads, its bell catching glints of fading sunlight. The 4 sensory clubs sway gently, each carrying 6 eyes that scan horizon, surface, and floor. In their silence, they create a picture of the world adequate for survival, a world stitched from light gradients, silhouettes, and the shimmer of fish. It glides not as a phantom adrift, but as a hunter with purpose, a creature whose body is both net and weapon, whose nervous system is both map and compass. They are, in truth, the silent city of eyes. Animals without brains, yet not without decisions. Predators whose lethality masks subtlety. Creatures that remind us that intelligence does not require skulls, and that even the simplest bodies can hold profound strategies. In their transparency lies one of the ocean's most opaque riddles: how life, in its infinite variations, finds ways to see, to choose, and to survive. The scene begins in the pale shimmer of a tropical morning. The camera hovers above a shallow reef slope where shafts of light descend like cathedral beams through the water. Below, the corals are restless with movement. Wrasses darting, parrotfish scraping algae, and clouds of anthias suspended in dazzling orange flurries. Cutting through this pageantry comes a shape both familiar and foreign, a snake, but not of the forest or desert. Its body, banded in black and cream, coils effortlessly through the water, its flattened tail waving like the blade of a paddle. This is a sea snake, and here, in the salted world of reefs and lagoons, it has become as much a creature of the sea as any fish. A sudden commotion draws focus. A female sea snake threads through a corridor of coral. Behind her, multiple males converge, each one driven by the urgency of reproduction. Their bodies entwine in writhing braids, tails flicking, torsos coiling. The melee seems chaotic, but it is ritual. Males attempt to align cloacas with the females, jostling one another in their desperation. Then, abruptly, one male veers upward, straight toward a diver's fin. The approach is quick, almost aggressive, yet the intent is not predatory. It is mistaken identity. During mating season, males operate in heightened states of arousal, their vision tuned to movement, stripes and silhouettes. A fin flashing in the water can resemble the form of a rival or a potential mate. For divers unaware of this behavior, such encounters appear threatening, but in truth they are accidents of biology, not attacks. The mystery of sea snakes deepens when we remember a simple truth: these are air breathers. Unlike fish, they lack gills. Yet unlike turtles or seals, they do not return routinely to land. Instead, they spend nearly their entire lives at sea. How do they manage oxygen, salt, and reproduction in an environment so fundamentally at odds with their ancestry? The answer lies in a suite of evolutionary innovations that make sea snakes among the most specialized reptiles on Earth. To breathe, sea snakes must surface, but their strategy is subtle. They rise briefly, exposing only the top of their snout, sipping air in seconds before vanishing again. Some species can stay submerged for more than an hour, aided by cutaneous oxygen uptake. Their skin is unusually permeable, allowing them to absorb dissolved oxygen directly from seawater. This contribution may account for up to 1/4 of their oxygen budget, a remarkable adaptation for a reptile descended from land-dwelling ancestors. In effect, their very skin has become a secondary lung, supplementing the air they carry within. Inside their bodies, the lung itself is reshaped by the demands of water. Extending almost the length of the snake, the lung acts not only as a respiratory organ, but also as a buoyancy tank. By regulating air volume, sea snakes adjust their position in the water column, hovering neutrally in mid-water or sinking into crevices. This dual use blurs the line between breathing and swimming, turning respiration into a tool for locomotion. The ocean, however, imposes another challenge: salt. Drinking seawater would dehydrate them, yet their prey, eels, fish and fish eggs, come saturated with it. To cope, sea snakes possess sublingual glands beneath the tongue that excrete excess salt. Each time they flick their tongue, microcrystals of sodium chloride are expelled, invisible to the casual eye but vital for maintaining balance. This system mirrors the salt glands of seabirds and marine iguanas, a case of convergent evolution that reveals how different lineages solve the same osmotic puzzle. Their tails tell another story of adaptation. Unlike terrestrial snakes, sea snakes bear tails flattened into paddles, edged with scales designed for thrust. The movement is less sinuous than on land, more like the deliberate sweeps of an oar. These tails allow bursts of speed when pursuing prey, but are equally efficient for gliding over reefs in apparent leisure. Watching a sea snake hunt reveals this efficiency in motion. It threads into crevices, probing with its narrow head, searching for eels and small fish hidden in coral labyrinths. Sometimes it raids nests, consuming clusters of fish eggs in quick succession. Unlike ambush predators, sea snakes are active foragers, their survival built on exploration rather than ambush. Hunting is shaped not only by sight, but also by chemoreception. Like their land relatives, sea snakes flick their tongues, drawing in water samples analyzed by the Jacobson's organ. Chemical cues betray the presence of prey even in turbid water, guiding strikes in environments where visibility falters. Once located, the bite is decisive. Sea snake venom, among the most potent in the reptile world, is optimized for immobilizing fish. It acts quickly on neuromuscular junctions, halting escape before the fragile snake risks injury in prolonged struggle. For humans, accidental bites are rare, but the potency of the venom has fueled exaggerated fears. In truth, most bites occur when fishermen handle sea snakes caught in nets, or when divers attempt to grab them. Left undisturbed, they are generally calm, even curious, approaching humans without aggression. Many incidents reported as attacks are instead investigative encounters, snakes testing the boundaries of their world. The real danger lies not in hostility, but in mishandling. Respect, distance, and stillness almost always prevent conflict. Their life cycle ties them inseparably to the sea. Unlike sea turtles, which must return to land to lay eggs, most true sea snakes are ovoviviparous. Females retain eggs within their bodies, giving birth to live young in open water. Neonates emerge fully formed, miniature versions of adults already capable of swimming and feeding. This adaptation frees sea snakes entirely from terrestrial dependence, allowing them to range across coral reefs, lagoons, and open seas. Only a few species, such as the Laticauda sea kraits, retain the ancestral tie to land, crawling ashore to lay eggs in caves or crevices. For the majority, however, land is no longer home. Seasonal aggregations for mating transform quiet reefs into arenas. At these times, dozens of males may converge on a single female, coiling in competitive tangles. Chemical cues, released in the water, trigger these swarms, synchronizing behavior across individuals. The sight is both mesmerizing and disorienting. Ribbons of striped bodies twisting in slow motion, the line between contest and courtship blurred. Such gatherings, though chaotic in appearance, serve a clear function, maximizing reproductive success in a vast ocean where encounters might otherwise be rare. The ecological role of sea snakes extends beyond predation. By feeding on eels and reef fish, they help regulate populations that could otherwise overgraze or destabilize coral ecosystems. Their movements through crevices stir sediments, resuspend nutrients, and aerate reef pockets, subtle but important contributions to benthic dynamics. They are not abundant everywhere, but where they occur in numbers, their presence shapes both prey behavior and reef structure. Conservation concerns for sea snakes are less familiar than for whales or turtles, yet they face mounting pressures. Bycatch in trawl and gillnet fisheries claims countless individuals each year. Coastal development erodes the mangroves and shallow habitats where they hunt and breed. Pollution, especially oil spills, can devastate populations, as their permeable skin and reliance on clean reefs make them acutely vulnerable. Yet their plight receives little attention, overshadowed by more charismatic marine species. They are, in a sense, forgotten mariners, vital to reef ecology, but invisible in conservation narratives. The closing shot returns to the reef slope. A sea snake rises gracefully toward the surface, its body glimmering in fractured sunlight. At the surface, it breaks through with the smallest ripple, sipping a bubble of air before gliding back down. Around it, fish scatter in brief alarm, then resume their routines. The snake disappears into coral corridors, tail slicing with practiced rhythm, tongue tasting the salted currents for signals of prey. Sea snakes embody the paradox of air in a world of salt. They are creatures caught between inheritance and innovation. Reptiles that never abandoned lungs yet mastered the sea so completely they no longer need the land. Their adaptations, cutaneous breathing, salt glands, buoyancy lungs, paddle tails, read like engineering solutions to impossible problems. And through them they remind us that survival is often about compromise, the blue air above sustaining life in a salted world below. They are, in essence, blue air in a salted world. Emissaries of evolution that reveal how far lineage can bend without breaking, and how even the most terrestrial of creatures can redraw their boundaries until land is no longer part of the map at all. At first glance, the reef is silent, still, and unremarkable. A scattering of coral rubble lies across a sandy flat, some patches encrusted with algae, others smooth and eroded by tides. The camera drifts slowly, and nothing stirs. Then, in a blink, the illusion fractures. What seemed a lump of stone inhales sharply, its mouth unfolding like a trapdoor, and a goby is gone. The surface settles back into stillness, dorsal spines rising faintly like switchblades before folding once again into invisibility. The predator has not moved more than a ripple. It has not pursued, not chased, not exerted any energy beyond the single instant of strike. This is the stonefish, an animal whose power lies not in speed or strength, but in the perfection of stillness. The paradox of the stonefish is that its strategy does not rely on competing with speedsters of the reef. Fast swimmers like jacks and barracuda seize prey in relentless pursuit. The stonefish, by contrast, defeats speed by erasing the need for motion. By rendering itself indistinguishable from rock, it removes itself from the equation of chase. In this stillness, it creates an economy of survival. Invest almost nothing, reap everything. Its strike, when it comes, is one of the fastest among fishes, measured in mere milliseconds, but it is deployed only when certainty exists. The rest of the time, the stonefish is nothing but rock, sculpted into camouflage by evolution's most merciless artist. Camouflage is not passive here. Stonefish bury themselves with sand jets, pulsating their fins to shower sediment over their backs until their outlines vanish. Their skin supports microcolor shifts, adjusting tone slightly to match surrounding rubble or the faint green of algal mats. Over time, real algae and encrusting organisms grow upon their skin, furthering the illusion. This living disguise is maintained with patience and absolute stillness. While other predators expend calories patrolling ranges or chasing prey, the stonefish waits. Its world is defined not by distance traveled, but by the radius of its strike zone. A circle so small yet so deadly that survival is guaranteed within it. The feeding strike itself borders on the supernatural. Stonefish deploy a rapid expansion of the buccal cavity, essentially opening their mouths so violently that prey is sucked in before it has time to flee. High-speed footage reveals the entire process lasting less than 1/100th of a second. The goby or shrimp never even begins an escape. The mouth becomes a vacuum chamber, pulling water and victim alike into the gullet. The jaws then snap shut, resetting into stillness as though nothing had happened. This ambush system is so efficient that the stonefish can afford to eat rarely, conserving energy for long stretches between meals. But the spines tell a darker story. Along the dorsal ridge of the stonefish sit 13 stout spines, each connected to venom glands. When threatened, the spines rise rigid and sharp, their tips designed to puncture with ease. Pressure on the spine forces venom through ducts into the wound, delivering one of the most potent cocktails in the animal kingdom. The venom causes excruciating pain, tissue death, and in severe cases, cardiovascular collapse. For humans who step on stonefish while wading tropical flats, the experience is often described as pain beyond comprehension, a physiological storm of nerves firing under chemical assault. And yet the venom is not an attack weapon. Unlike snakes or scorpions, stonefish do not inject venom during feeding. It is purely defensive, a deterrent for predators that might mistake the stonefish for easy prey. Large rays, sharks, or even humans represent threats in its world, and the venom is the insurance policy of stillness. By sitting immobile, the stonefish risks detection. By arming itself with venom, it ensures that detection comes at a cost too great for predators to bear. This is the economic logic of ambush toxicity. Invest in chemical defense so complete that motionlessness remains viable. The physiology of pain induced by stonefish venom is particularly instructive. The venom contains proteins that disrupt ion channels in nerve cells, sending pain signals into overdrive. Blood pressure can drop suddenly, and muscle weakness or paralysis may follow. In pre-antivenom times, fatalities were recorded, particularly in remote coastal communities. Today, antivenom exists and is effective, but treatment still requires rapid intervention. Vinegar can be applied to inactivate unfired nematocysts, and immersion of the sting site in hot water can denature venom proteins, providing temporary relief. Above all, prevention remains the best medicine. Thick, barbless footwear in tropical shallows is the difference between a walk on a reef flat and a medical emergency. Despite the terror of its sting, the stonefish is not aggressive. It does not swim toward swimmers or divers. Almost all stings occur by accident, when humans step directly upon one concealed in sand or rubble. In that sense, the stonefish is a victim of its own perfection. Its camouflage is so flawless that even careful eyes may not detect it until too late. It does not seek conflict. It embodies avoidance. Its venom, its stillness, its disguise, all are strategies for minimizing exposure while maximizing survival. The ecological role of stonefish extends beyond their deadly reputation. By feeding on small fish and crustaceans, they regulate populations that might otherwise overrun reef flats. Their position in the food web stabilizes the balance of predator and prey in shallow ecosystems. Their invisibility, too, is part of the reef's complexity, an adaptation that creates a game of constant vigilance for smaller fishes, shaping behaviors of caution, schooling, and avoidance. In this way, the stonefish acts as an unseen architect of reef community dynamics. Interestingly, stonefish are not always static in their lives. During spawning seasons, they rise from concealment and release gametes into the water column, entrusting reproduction to currents. Eggs float as plankton, hatching into larvae that drift with tides before settling. In these early stages, stonefish are vulnerable, subject to the whims of ocean currents and predators. Only those that survive to adulthood achieve the rock-like permanence that defines the species. The conservation story of stonefish is quieter than that of sharks or turtles, but it exists. Coastal development, destructive fishing practices, and climate change threaten shallow reef habitats where stonefish thrive. Destruction of coral rubble beds and seagrass flats strips away their camouflage and hunting grounds. Though not currently endangered, stonefish populations are tied to the health of reef ecosystems, and their fate is inevitably bound to the broader crisis of marine degradation. The closing scene returns to the sandy flat. A crab scuttles across a patch of rubble, antennae twitching nervously. Just ahead lies another stone, or so it seems. The crab ventures closer, pausing to taste the water. In the blink of an eye, the stone inhales, the crab disappears, and stillness resumes. No chase, no sound, only the absolute quiet of ambush perfected. The spines rise slightly, a warning written in flesh and venom, before folding back into the silhouette of rock. The stonefish reminds us that death in the ocean does not always roar or strike with spectacle. Sometimes it waits, patient, invisible, and absolute. It embodies a survival strategy, as ruthless as any predator's pursuit, the art of appearing as nothing at all. They are, in the truest sense, death that looks like rock, predators that reveal how stillness itself can be more dangerous than speed, and how in the calculus of nature, invisibility and venom together create one of the ocean's most efficient designs. The scene begins in the twilight hush of a coral reef. The sun has slipped low, scattering shafts of fading gold through the shallows, but down in the crevices, shadow rules. A grouper hovers just above the coral, stocky and vigilant, its gaze fixed on a hole riddled with branching passages. Beside it, something stirs from the darkness. A moray eel, body sinuous, jaws opening and closing with a rhythm that seems both threatening and restless. For a moment, the two predators face each other, heads tilting in a curious symmetry. Then the grouper jerks its head in a repeated signal, a kind of silent beckoning. The moray responds, sliding into the crevice with practiced ease. The grouper holds its position outside, waiting. Moments later, small fish burst from the labyrinth, fleeing the moray's advance, straight into the grouper's mouth. It is a joint raid, choreographed without words, an alliance between species. This cooperation reveals one of the most intriguing mysteries of the reef: interspecies communication. Groupers and morays have been observed coordinating hunts with remarkable precision. The grouper initiates by shaking its head or pointing its body toward a crevice, a signal that invites the moray to join. The moray, with its serpentine body, can flush prey from labyrinths that the bulky grouper cannot penetrate. In return, the grouper seizes fleeing fish, and the pair share the spoils of efficiency. For years, biologists debated whether such interactions were accidents of proximity. But repeated observations across different reefs confirmed otherwise. The signals are deliberate, the cooperation intentional. In an ocean often portrayed as a place of solitary struggle, here is a striking example of partnership, a reminder that evolution sometimes rewards conspiracies as much as rivalries. By night, the moray eel becomes a solitary prowler. Emerging from its lair, it glides with undulating grace over the reef, weaving between corals and sponges. Unlike suction-feeding fishes that engulf prey with vacuum pressure, morays rely on sheer grip. Their jaws, lined with needle-like teeth, seize struggling fish or cephalopods with unyielding force. But gripping alone does not solve the challenge of swallowing prey in a confined space. Most fishes transport food from mouth to throat with suction, but morays cannot generate enough negative pressure because their skulls are elongated and their mouths narrow. Instead, evolution has gifted them something extraordinary, a second set of jaws hidden within their throat. These pharyngeal jaws, anchored deep in the gullet, can launch forward like a pair of spring-loaded tongs, seizing prey and dragging it backward into the esophagus. High-speed footage reveals this alien-like mechanism in startling clarity. The moray bites once with its outer jaws, then a second time from within, as though a creature lives inside another. This adaptation makes morays unique among fishes, a biological solution to the problem of suction absent in their lineage. It is both grotesque and ingenious, an engineering marvel concealed in the shadows of coral caves. Their hunting relies heavily on chemical cues. Morays flick their jaws and open their mouths rhythmically, pumping water across olfactory pits that are unusually well developed. They can detect faint chemical traces of prey hidden within crevices, allowing them to home in on targets even when visibility is poor. Their skulls, adapted for leverage, deliver powerful bites, not through brute force like sharks, but through mechanical efficiency, optimized for seizing slippery prey. Daylight hours find morays in retreat. They coil into narrow holes, bodies folded like knotted ropes, heads protruding just enough for wary observation. Tourists often mistake this posture, gaping mouths lined with teeth, as aggression. In reality, it is respiration. Morays must keep water flowing over their gills, and rhythmic jaw opening ensures oxygen intake. The image of menace is, ironically, nothing more than breathing. Morays are not entirely solitary in their ecological roles. Many engage in cleaning symbioses. Cleaner shrimp and wrasses enter their gaping mouths, plucking parasites from teeth and gill chambers, an act that demands extraordinary trust from both parties. The shrimp scuttles over incisors sharp enough to puncture bone, yet the eel remains motionless, tolerating the intrusion. This delicate relationship highlights the paradox of morays, ferocious hunters that nevertheless participate in the mutualistic choreography of reef life. Fear of moray eels has been stoked by stories of divers bitten during encounters. Their long toothy heads emerging from caves do resemble something monstrous from folklore. Yet most injuries occur during misguided hand feeding, a tourism practice where fish are offered directly to eels. In the frenzy, morays may mistake fingers for prey or simply defend themselves when threatened. Left unprovoked, they are rarely aggressive. Indeed, divers who observe with caution often find morays curious, approaching slowly and retreating if disturbed. The myth of the vicious monster collapses under the reality of a cautious, ambush-adapted predator simply trying to survive in crowded ecosystems. Their ecological role is pivotal. By preying on mid-sized reef fish and octopuses, morays exert top-down control, preventing overpopulation of species that might otherwise outcompete others. Their cooperation with groupers adds a unique dynamic, allowing two predators to access prey otherwise unavailable alone. This partnership increases hunting success for both, a reminder that survival in the reef is often about alliances as much as competition. From a biomechanical perspective, moray feeding also highlights evolutionary diversity in fish skull design. While most reef fishes evolved suction feeding as a universal solution, morays abandoned it, choosing instead to specialize in elongation, leverage, and pharyngeal jaws. This evolutionary divergence illustrates the plasticity of vertebrate design, different solutions to the same ecological challenge, all shaped by the constraints of morphology and environment. Cinematically, the story returns to the joint hunt. A grouper hovers, signaling with head shakes. The moray slips into a crevice, body weaving into tunnels impossible for the grouper to access. Seconds later, a cloud of goatfish erupts outward, scattering in confusion. Some dart straight into the grouper's waiting jaws. Others twist away only to be snatched by the moray as it emerges. The coordination is seamless, not choreographed by thought, but by instinct and repetition, a conspiracy of efficiency forged over evolutionary time. The lair, too, is part of their story. Knotted burrows offer refuge not only from predators, but also from the challenges of molting skin. Morays shed regularly, sloughing off outer layers in transparent sheets to rid themselves of parasites. The lair becomes both home and maintenance station, an intimate microhabitat where the eel's survival is renewed in cycles invisible to casual eyes. The conservation context for morays is complex. They are not targeted in large-scale fisheries, but they are vulnerable to habitat loss. Coral degradation, driven by climate change, bleaching, and destructive fishing practices, reduces the labyrinthine crevices they rely on for shelter and hunting. In some regions, morays are harvested for food or traditional medicine, though their flesh can carry toxic compounds such as ciguatoxins, rendering them dangerous for human consumption. They are, in essence, casualties of habitat decline more than direct exploitation, their fates tied to the reefs that sustain them. The closing shot lingers inside a coral cavern. The moray coils deeper into shadow, eyes gleaming faintly, jaws opening and closing in their rhythmic respiration. Outside, the grouper drifts away, its belly full. The conspiracy is over, but it will be renewed again, night after night, whenever opportunity demands. In this hidden world, the moray eel is not a monster but a conspirator, a partner in strategies, a specialist in shadows, and a creature whose alien design speaks to the infinite creativity of evolution. They are, in the truest sense, the double-jawed conspirators, predators who prove that survival need not be solitary, and that even in the ruthless reef, alliances can bloom in the darkness. The reef is alive with light, fractured into ribbons of turquoise and gold. A lone cuttlefish hovers in open water, its body poised midway between solidity and illusion. On one flank, the skin ripples with bold zebra stripes, a flashing barrage directed at a rival male. On the other side, hidden from that rival's view, the same cuttlefish displays the muted beige tones of a receptive female. Two messages, two audiences, one body. The deception works. The rival male is distracted, while the female nearby is courted by signals meant for her eyes alone. Few animals play such elaborate games with their own skin, but for the cuttlefish, the body itself is a ledger of magic, a surface where truth and illusion are recorded in real time. At the core of their mystery lies camouflage that is not static, but dynamic. Unlike chameleons, which shift through slow hormonal changes, cuttlefish alter their appearance in milliseconds. Chromatophores, tiny sacs of pigment surrounded by radial muscles, expand and contract, creating fields of yellow, red, brown, and black. Beneath these, iridophores reflect light in shimmering greens and blues, while leucophores scatter ambient light to mimic background tones. Together, these layers act as pixels in a living display, a system so refined that cuttlefish can replicate not only color, but texture, polarization, and even the movement of light across surfaces. The magician's trick is not just to blend, but to recreate, to render themselves indistinguishable from coral, sand, or algae, at a level that deceives even the polarized vision of other marine animals. What then does the world look like through their eyes? Unlike vertebrates, cuttlefish pupils form a distinctive W shape, a geometry that sharpens contrast across multiple planes of light. They are not colorblind in the simple sense. Rather, their perception emphasizes polarization, the orientation of light waves invisible to human sight. This gives them access to a hidden layer of information, a reef overlaid with polarization markers that reveal prey, predators, and mates. Their own skin produces polarized reflections, meaning that even while cloaked to most animals, they may be sending secret signals to one another. To watch cuttlefish interact is to glimpse a conversation conducted in wavelengths invisible to us, a ledger of codes written in light and angle. Behaviorally, cuttlefish deploy camouflage not just to hide but to hunt. Motion camouflage, for example, allows them to approach prey by synchronizing skin patterns with background drift. Against a sandy bottom, waves of light and shadow pass across their skin in sync with the shifting surface, making their advance undetectable. When targeting shrimp, they sometimes unleash strobing displays, pulsing waves of light that ripple across their mantles, appearing to dazzle or hypnotize prey into hesitation. In that pause lies opportunity. A tentacle, coiled like a spring beneath the mantle, launches outward to snare the victim, dragging it into a beak as sharp as any hawk's. The strike is sudden, but it is preceded by theater, camouflage shifting into spectacle, illusion preceding capture. Their mating strategies add further intrigue. In dense breeding grounds, smaller males are often outcompeted by larger rivals, but evolution has granted them an alternative: deception. These sneaker males alter their coloration and posture to mimic females, slipping past dominant males unnoticed. Once close to a real female, they reveal their true sex and attempt to mate, often successfully. This cross-dressing strategy is not a rare anomaly, but a regular feature of cuttlefish societies, illustrating how deception is woven into every layer of their biology. Females, in turn, guard their eggs with diligence, attaching them beneath rocks or within coral cavities, camouflaging clutches in ways that echo the concealment of their own bodies. The architecture of their skin deserves special attention. Each chromatophore is a living pixel, controlled by direct neural input. Unlike vertebrates, where skin color changes rely on hormonal cascades, cuttlefish skin is wired directly to the brain. Signals travel at lightning speed, allowing whole-body pattern shifts in less than a second. Beneath this lies a scaffold of iridophores that manipulate light through thin film interference, producing iridescent blues and greens, and leucophores that reflect the dominant color of ambient light. The result is a layered canvas that can generate both mimicry and display, camouflage to prey, signals to mates, warnings to rivals. It is, in essence, a living screen, millions of years older than our digital technologies, but operating with comparable versatility. Polarization adds another hidden layer. Many reef fishes, particularly those that prey upon cuttlefish, are blind to polarized signals. By encoding messages in polarization, cuttlefish bypass eavesdroppers, whispering through wavelengths that only other cephalopods can hear. This covert communication system allows them to maintain camouflage while simultaneously exchanging information with mates. To human eyes, the skin remains mottled rock. To another cuttlefish, it is alive with flickering signals. In this way, the magician's ledger is double-written, one version for the reef at large, another for those attuned to the code. Their intelligence is as striking as their skin. With large brains relative to body size, cuttlefish demonstrate problem-solving, learning, and memory uncommon in short-lived animals. Experiments reveal that they can navigate mazes, remember solutions, and adjust tactics when conditions change. They are capable of delayed gratification, resisting immediate food rewards in favor of larger ones later, a cognitive feat once thought restricted to mammals and birds. That such intelligence exists in animals, whose lifespan is often little more than 2 years, forces us to reconsider the links between longevity and cognition. In cuttlefish, evolution has concentrated brilliance into brevity. Life for a cuttlefish is a compressed narrative. They grow rapidly, reach maturity within months, breed and die soon after spawning. Their brilliance is transient, their illusions flickering for only a short time before vanishing. And yet, in that window, they leave behind a profound impact on the reef's ecology. By preying on crustaceans and small fish, they regulate populations that might otherwise destabilize ecosystems. Their eggs, in turn, provide food for a host of scavengers, ensuring that their energy is not lost, but reinvested. The conservation picture for cuttlefish is mixed. Some species are abundant, harvested in fisheries for their meat and ink. Others face declines from habitat loss, climate change, and overfishing. Their reliance on camouflage makes them particularly vulnerable to environmental shifts that alter reef composition. A cuttlefish adapted to match coral rubble may stand out against algae-smothered reefs. As the ledger of their illusions depends on context, the erasure of reefs threatens their very survival. Protecting their habitats is not simply about saving individuals, but about preserving the backgrounds upon which their magic is written. The chapter closes on a reef ledge at dusk. A cuttlefish hovers motionless, its skin shifting from mottled rock to luminous waves of light, strobing briefly before fading back into invisibility. Nearby, shrimp hesitate, caught in the edge of the illusion. For a moment, the cuttlefish is both hunter and conjurer, magician and scribe. Its body records the ebb and flow of deception and truth, of signals visible and invisible, of strategies etched not in ink, but in cells. They are, in the truest sense, the magician's ledger, animals whose skin is a living manuscript, where every line tells of camouflage, communication, deception, and intelligence. In their brief lives, they inscribe a story of brilliance that dissolves as quickly as it is written, leaving us to marvel at the fleeting magic of an animal that turns biology into art. The water is hushed, glassy above but alive below. A coral bommy rises from the sandy bottom like a tower, its flanks draped in corals and soft sponges. Around it swirls a confetti of neon wrasses and cleaner fish, darting in purposeful choreography. Then, from the blue void beyond, the shadow appears. A manta ray, wings spanning wider than a small car, glides in slow arcs around the bommy. Its enormous body dwarfs the tiny reef, yet its motion is feather-light, as if the water itself were carrying it. The manta banks in a slow circle, tilting slightly to expose its pale belly. Instantly, the cleaners surge forward, streaming over its skin like living rivulets. They pluck parasites, dead tissue, and morsels from gill slits, each movement purposeful. To the human eye, the manta's belly appears plain and pale, but scientists know better. Each manta bears a unique constellation of dark spots across its underside, a pattern as individual as a fingerprint. Researchers use these spot maps as passports, identifying individuals across years and oceans. The manta is no anonymous shadow. It is a being with history, movements, and memory. Yet the deeper mystery lies not in its elegance, but in its brain. Among fishes, manta rays hold one of the highest brain-to-body mass ratios, rivaling some mammals. The question arises, why would a filter feeder, an animal that feeds on drifting plankton and small organisms, require such neural complexity? Sharks and rays with predatory lifestyles may demand keen senses and intricate strategies, but the manta is no high-speed ambush artist. It is a grazer of the microscopic. And still, its brain swells disproportionately, its cerebellum and telencephalon expanded. Evidence suggests this intelligence fuels social complexity, long-distance navigation, and perhaps even forms of awareness we hesitate to call self-recognition. In the quiet grace of their flight, mantas carry secrets of cognition rarely glimpsed in the sea. Their feeding behavior reveals both innovation and precision. When plankton blooms thicken in the water, mantas gather by the dozens, sometimes even hundreds. They swim in cyclonic formations, spiraling upward in coordinated columns, funneling prey toward their open mouths. In other moments, they employ barrel rolls, spinning in tight toruses with cephalic lobes unfurled. These lobes, fleshy extensions at the front of the head, curl outward like unfurling scrolls, forming living funnels that direct plankton into gaping maws. Each roll filters a dense slice of water, and repeated in succession, the ray carves invisible spirals of consumption. Feeding is not a mindless act. It is a carefully engineered dance tuned to water flow, prey density, and the efficiency of motion. Migrations add another layer of intrigue. Manta rays are known to travel hundreds, even thousands of kilometers across open oceans, converging on seamounts and reef pinnacles that rise abruptly from the abyss. These structures act as gathering points, where currents concentrate plankton and cleaning stations provide maintenance. How mantas locate such sites remains partly mysterious. Magnetic sensitivity, memory of current flows, or even social cues may play roles. Tagging studies reveal looping circuits through vast expanses, each return to a seamount marking not just a feeding ground, but a communal cathedral, where mantis congregate, interact, and maintain the rituals of their lives. At cleaning stations, the spectacle is almost sacred. Mantas circle patiently, queuing like pilgrims awaiting service. They tilt their bodies, expose bellies, and hover motionless as cleaner wrasses move across them. These interactions can last minutes, sometimes longer, with the ray seeming to enter a trance-like stillness. The station becomes a cathedral not only for hygiene, but for social contact. Multiple mantas may gather, each taking turns, each interacting in ways that suggest recognition and tolerance. Observers note individuals returning repeatedly to the same stations, implying not only memory but fidelity to specific locations. The cleaning symbiosis, so vital for parasite control, becomes a cornerstone of manta ecology, binding them to reefs as much as to open seas. Science has begun to probe their intelligence more directly. Studies show that mantas recognize themselves in mirrors, altering behavior when confronted with reflections, touching marks on their bodies, exploring movements not consistent with mistaking the reflection for another animal. If confirmed, this places them among a small cadre of animals, great apes, elephants, dolphins, corvids, that demonstrate self-recognition. Combined with their large brains, complex social interactions, and apparent curiosity, mantas push the boundaries of what we consider fish capable of. Their lives, though still shadowed in mystery, hint at cognition more layered than mere instinct. Yet their world is perilous. Mantas are caught as bycatch in tuna and gillnet fisheries, their vast wings tangled in gear. Worse still, they are targeted for their gill rakers, comb-like structures used in filter feeding. In some markets, these rakers are dried and sold in traditional remedies, despite lacking proven efficacy. The trade has driven declines in populations across regions, stripping seas of their slow-breeding giants. Unlike smaller fish, mantas reproduce slowly, one pup every 2 or 3 years, born live after long gestation. This low fecundity makes them vulnerable to overexploitation. Remove too many and recovery becomes a generational struggle. Hope lies in ecotourism and conservation measures. In regions such as the Maldives, Palau, and parts of Indonesia, manta ray tourism generates revenue far exceeding the value of fisheries. Strict rules now protect cleaning stations, prohibiting divers from touching or crowding mantas, and limiting boat traffic to prevent harassment. In these places, the Cathedral of Cleaners remains intact, a sanctuary where mantas can continue their rituals undisturbed. Conservationists argue that protecting mantas is not only ethical but economically rational, transforming them from hunted resources into living treasures worth more alive than dead. Cinematically, the story returns to the Bommy. The manta circles once more, wings curving like the arches of a Gothic nave. Cleaner wrasses surge and scatter, then return in ribbons of neon, darting across pale skin to erase the marks of parasites. From beneath, the belly spot pattern glows faintly, a passport inscribed in pigment, a biography written in blotches. This manta may travel oceans, cross currents, and vanish for months, but when it returns, its ledger of spots ensures recognition. It is not anonymous. It is an individual part of a network, bound to place and memory. The manta ray embodies a paradox, a filter feeder, yet one of the ocean's most intelligent fishes, a giant, yet reliant on microscopic prey, a wanderer of open seas, yet anchored to seamount cathedrals where rituals unfold. Its cephalic lobes, its polarization cues, its immense brain, all speak to an animal that blends power with subtlety, scale with finesse. In its flight through water, it reminds us that majesty is not always predatory, and intelligence is not always tethered to hunting. They are, in the truest sense, the cathedral of cleaners, creatures that unite the grand scale of ocean wanderings with the intimate detail of social bonds, their very bodies, recording journeys, memories, and encounters. To watch a manta glide is to witness not just movement, but the unfolding of a life written across the ledger of the sea. The film opens from above, the drone's eye sweeping over turquoise flats that ripple under a sunlit sky. At first, the expanse seems empty, a sheet of shallow water broken only by shifting sandbars. Then the camera tilts and patterns appear, spirals traced faintly in the sediment, concentric curves that glimmer through clear water. A fever of stingrays moves below, their diamond shapes stirring trails in the sand like brushstrokes across a canvas. From high above they seem like living glyphs, inscribing their presence into the seafloor. But when the lens dives beneath the surface, another revelation comes. In the very same flats, other rays are invisible, buried beneath a fine layer of sand, their eyes and spiracles alone exposed. They wait with quiet patience, their bodies hidden blueprints beneath the seafloor, pulsing the sand as they breathe. To the casual eye, stingrays might seem passive, relying on concealment rather than action. Yet their power lies in sensing what the human eye cannot detect. Beneath their skin lies one of nature's most exquisite sensory systems, the ampullae of Lorenzini, a network of gel-filled pores scattered across their snouts. These organs allow stingrays to read the faintest electric whispers, the bioelectric fields generated by the muscles and nerves of living creatures. A buried crab shifting beneath sand, an eel hidden in a crevice, even the faint pulse of a fish's heartbeat, all are betrayed to the ray's electrosensory map. For us, the sandy bottom is opaque. For the stingray, it is alive with signals. Ambush hunting demonstrates this mastery. A ray rests motionless, wings pressed flat, eyes breaking the sediment surface. Beneath, its electrosensors pulse like a radar array. The moment a crab scuttles too close, the ray explodes from concealment, wings surging upward in a cloud of sand. Its mouth, placed ventrally, engulfs the prey with suction, grinding it with flattened, plate-like teeth evolved to crush shells. In a second, stillness resumes, the sand resettling, the blueprint restored. The cycle of invisibility and eruption is repeated countless times across reef flats and lagoons, shaping the dynamics of benthic prey populations. But stingrays are not always creatures of stillness. At times they burst into surprising acrobatics, leaping entirely from the water in what biologists call sky-hopping. Schools of rays, particularly spotted eagle rays, erupt from the surface, their wings beating air in clumsy but powerful strokes. The reasons remain debated, perhaps parasite removal, courtship display, or predator evasion. Whatever the cause, the sight is startling, the blueprint beneath the sand suddenly sketching itself into the sky. The behavior underscores the duality of rays, hidden architects of the seafloor one moment, skyward flyers the next. Courtship reveals another layer of complexity. In seasonal aggregations, males pursue females in trains, following one after another in synchronized lines across shallow lagoons. The females often glide serenely ahead, while males jostle for proximity, attempting to grasp a female's pectoral fin with their mouths. Copulation, when it occurs, is brief and rough, but the trains themselves illustrate social structures rarely seen in solitary predators. For a species so often perceived as secretive, these public rituals are dramatic spectacles, binding stingrays to seasonal rhythms of reproduction and migration. The biology of stingrays is rich with engineering marvels. Their bodies are flattened, optimized for bottom-dwelling life, with spiracles behind the eyes that draw in water for respiration while the mouth remains buried. Their tails, long and whip-like, carry the most infamous adaptation, the venomous barb. Contrary to sensationalist depictions, the stingray does not wield this barb in predation. It is purely defensive, a deterrent against large predators or unfortunate human feet. The spine is serrated, encased in a sheath of tissue laced with venom cells. When pressure snaps the sheath, venom floods into the wound, causing searing pain, swelling, and in rare cases, systemic complications. Fatalities are uncommon, but the sting leaves a lasting impression. Yet even here, knowledge transforms fear into prevention. In shallow flats, the stingrays shuffle, dragging feet slowly across the sand rather than stepping, alerts raised to human presence, giving them time to flee rather than sting. The vast majority of stings occur when rays are stepped on accidentally. Like the stonefish, their deadliness is not an act of malice, but the byproduct of camouflage. For the rays, invisibility is protection. For us, awareness is the antidote. The venom barb, however, is only one part of their evolutionary story. Stingrays are also benthic engineers, reshaping the sediment with every feeding strike and burial. Their wing beats oxygenate layers of sand, resuspending nutrients that feed microbial communities. Their foraging pits create microhabitats, sheltering small invertebrates and reshaping currents that ripple across the flats. In this way, stingrays act as ecosystem shapers, their blueprints drawn not only in sand spirals, but in the chemical and biological processes of the seabed. Remove them, and the sediment becomes stagnant, impoverished of the subtle exchanges that fuel reef flats. From a physiological standpoint, stingrays embody a balance between efficiency and risk. Their flattened shape reduces visibility to predators, yet it also constrains respiration and limits their ability to chase prey. The solution is ambush combined with sensory precision. Electrosensory organs compensate for obscured vision. Crushing dentition compensates for the limitations of suction feeding. Venomous barbs compensate for vulnerability during stillness. Each trait fills a gap, turning apparent weakness into resilience. Their migrations, though less studied than those of manta rays, reveal surprising scale. Some stingray species move seasonally into shallow estuaries, capitalizing on surges of crustaceans or fish larvae. Others, like eagle rays, traverse open waters, leaping as if to announce their passage. These movements remind us that stingrays are not confined to sand and reef alone, but participate in broader seascape linkages, transferring energy between habitats. The conservation status of stingrays is a patchwork of concern. Many are caught unintentionally in trawl and gillnet fisheries, their slow reproductive rates making them vulnerable to declines. Others are hunted directly for meat or for their gill rakers, echoing the plight of manta rays. Habitat degradation compounds the threat. Seagrass beds and lagoons, vital foraging grounds, shrink under coastal development and climate change. Despite their ecological importance, stingrays often remain overshadowed by their more charismatic relatives, the sharks and mantas. Yet their quiet engineering of sediments, their role as predators of benthic invertebrates, and their place in the chain of marine life make them irreplaceable. The closing image returns to the turquoise flats. From the air, the fever of rays forms a living mandala, spirals expanding and collapsing as wings beat gently beneath the surface. From below, the hidden ambushes pulse sand through spiracles, their bodies vanishing into perfect mimicry of the seafloor. The blueprint is everywhere, in spirals traced above, in pits carved below, in electric whispers sensed through the water. Stingrays remind us that life beneath the surface is not only about spectacle, but about architecture. Patterns written in sand and current, designs that sustain ecosystems in ways too subtle for casual eyes. They are, in the truest sense, the blueprint under the sand, architects of invisibility and engineers of benthic life, creatures whose quiet presence shapes ecosystems more deeply than their stillness suggests. To find them is to look twice, to question what is rock and what is alive, and to realize that beneath every ripple of sand lies a story written in electricity, sediment, and the patient rhythm of wings. The camera opens on the calm brilliance of a turquoise shallows, water so clear that every ripple in the sand below is visible. A pod of bottlenose dolphins arcs just beneath the surface, their shadows shifting like crescents of silver light. Suddenly, one dolphin dips low, sweeping its tail through the seabed. A plume of mud erupts, expanding outward in a circular wall. The other dolphins position themselves just inside the ring, herding a school of fish into the center. The fish, confused and cornered, panic as the muddy curtain collapses around them. Their only escape is upward, leaping desperately over the false wall. But as they do, dolphin jaws snap shut, catching the fish mid-air. It is a hunt choreographed with surgical precision, a behavior known as mud ring feeding, and it transforms a simple shoal into a trap of physics and cooperation. This spectacle introduces the core mystery of dolphins. Why, among all the inhabitants of the ocean, have they become so complex, so seemingly intentional in their actions? Unlike many predators that rely purely on instinct, dolphins pass on traditions across generations. In Shark Bay, Australia, for example, some dolphins have been observed carrying marine sponges over their rostrums as tools. The sponges act as protective gloves, allowing them to probe sharp coral and rocky seafloors for hidden fish without injury. This technique is not universal. It is learned. Mothers teach calves, and calves adopt the tradition, creating localized cultures within dolphin societies. Such inheritance is not genetic but social, a rare phenomenon in the animal world. Dolphins in this way do not just live in oceans, they build cultures within them. Communication lies at the heart of these conspiracies. Each dolphin develops a unique whistle, a vocal signature akin to a name. These whistles are used for recognition, reunion, and social cohesion. Mothers and calves exchange them frequently, reinforcing bonds, while adults use them to call across murky water where vision falters. Unlike the general alarm calls or contact signals of many animals, these whistles are individualized. A pod, then, becomes not a nameless mass, but a society of distinct voices, each dolphin known to the others not only by presence, but by name. Hunting strategies amplify the conspiratorial character of dolphins. In the salt marshes of the southeastern United States, dolphins strand feed by chasing schools of fish onto mudflats. With sudden bursts of speed, they drive their prey onto land, beaching themselves partially to seize wriggling fish before sliding back into the water. It is a dangerous tactic. One misjudged angle can leave a dolphin stranded, yet it is repeated with precision, evidence of both daring and learned skill. Elsewhere, dolphins coordinate with seabirds like pelicans. While dolphins corral fish below, pelicans dive from above, forcing prey into tighter schools that benefit both predator types. Such interspecies collaboration mirrors the grouper-moray partnerships of reefs, but here it is conducted in open shallows with fluid adaptability. Not all dolphin behavior is functional in the immediate sense. Play occupies an enormous portion of their lives. Calves chase one another, toss seaweed like toys, and even ride the wakes of whales. Adults surf bow waves in front of boats, seemingly for no reason other than enjoyment and efficiency. The slipstream saves energy, but the repeated choice to turn hints at more than utility. Play in dolphins may act as practice, honing agility, coordination, and social bonds. But it also suggests that intelligence, once sufficient for survival, may spill into realms beyond necessity. In dolphins, cognition creates space for joy. Their sensory world deepens the intrigue. Dolphins navigate and hunt through echolocation, producing click trains that scatter through the water and return echoes from objects. From these echoes, dolphins construct acoustic images, perceiving shape, size, density, and even internal structures of prey. A fish hidden in seagrass or buried in sand cannot escape this acoustic map. Some researchers argue that echolocation grants dolphins a perception akin to X-ray vision, seeing inside objects in ways that surpass human senses entirely. To communicate with humans, trained dolphins sometimes project these clicks deliberately, demonstrating that echolocation is not only an unconscious sense, but a controllable tool. The neurological demands of such perception are immense. Dolphins maintain brains larger than many primates, with complex cortical folding that supports advanced processing. Their intelligence is further underscored by how they sleep. Unlike humans, dolphins cannot fully lose consciousness, for they must surface to breathe. Instead, they rest one hemisphere of the brain at a time, leaving the other awake to control movement and respiration. This unihemispheric slow-wave sleep allows them to remain vigilant while conserving energy. It is a compromise, a delicate balance between the need for rest and the demands of aquatic life. Mirror self-recognition adds another layer to their profile. In experimental settings, dolphins investigate mirrors with behaviors indicating awareness, moving parts of their bodies they cannot otherwise see, examining marks placed on their skin. They do not mistake the reflection for another dolphin. They recognize themselves. This trait, once thought exclusive to humans, great apes, and elephants, situates dolphins in an elite category of animals with self-awareness. Combined with their cultural traditions, communication, and cooperative hunting, the evidence paints dolphins as conspirators not only of the shallows, but of cognition itself. The ethics and conservation of dolphins underscore the complexity of their relationship with humans. In many coastal areas, dolphins suffer as bycatch, entangled in gill nets or trawl lines, where their intelligence is no defense against machinery. Noise pollution compounds the threat. Ship engines, naval sonar, and industrial activity saturate oceans with sound, masking communication and echolocation. To a dolphin, whose world is built from soundscapes, noise can be as devastating as habitat loss. It disrupts navigation, severs contact between pod members, and causes stress that ripples through generations. Tourism, too, requires balance. While dolphins captivate divers and boaters, feeding them alters natural behaviors. Conditioned by handouts, dolphins can become aggressive, lose hunting skills, or approach boats recklessly, exposing themselves to injury. Many regions now enforce feeding bans and responsible watching guidelines, protecting both dolphins and tourists. The lesson is clear. Admiration must be tempered with respect, for the intelligence that draws us to dolphins also makes them vulnerable to our influence. The closing scene returns to the turquoise shallows. A pod of dolphins glides in formation, their bodies slicing water with effortless synchrony. One breaks away, circling the seafloor, sweeping mud into a ring. Others move into position, fish bursting upward as the curtain collapses. Jaws snap and the cycle repeats. Above, seabirds wheel, drawn into the conspiracy. Below, calves watch, learning from mothers, absorbing the traditions that will carry them into adulthood. The shallows shimmer with light, but beneath that beauty lies a society of conspirators, predators who speak in names, forge cultural traditions, and wield intelligence like a tide. They are, in the truest sense, conspirators of the shallows, creatures who prove that cooperation is as powerful as speed, that intelligence can shape culture as much as survival, and that the ocean, vast as it is, becomes a stage for societies every bit as intricate as our own. The film begins with stillness. A sweep across a continental shelf shows nothing but empty sand, scattered shells, and fragments of algae swaying in the faint current. The water is brighter here than in the abyss, a broad plain of shallow light where shoals of herring and flounder pass across the seafloor. The camera drifts low, and for a moment there is only sediment and silence. Then, in a startling reveal, the sand itself yawns open. An enormous mouth stretches wide, edged with jagged teeth that curve inward like a trap of barbed wire. The maw snaps shut, the sand erupts in a burst of silt, and a hapless fish disappears. What seemed to be part of the seabed was never seabed at all. It was a monkfish waiting, motionless, the shadow on the seafloor. The monkfish, also known as goosefish or anglerfish of the shallows, embodies an evolutionary paradox. While most anglerfish are associated with the blackness of the deep sea, wielding luminous lures in eternal night, the monkfish hunts in broad daylight, inhabiting the continental shelves and slopes where sunlight still reaches. Here, there is no darkness to cloak them, no bioluminescent trickery. Instead, the monkfish turns the sand itself into camouflage, blending its grotesque, flattened body against the bottom until only the outline of its mouth betrays its presence. At the tip of its snout extends a modified spine, the elysium, ending in a fleshy lure that trembles like a worm. On the bright seafloor, this lure is less a lantern than a bait, wriggling seductively until a curious fish ventures too close. The strike is instantaneous, the jaws expanding to engulf prey nearly equal to the monkfish's own bulk. Unlike swift predators that chase or harry their quarry, the monkfish is a master of ambush. Its behavior follows a rhythm of stillness and explosion, of sand burial followed by sudden spring. The flat body allows it to settle seamlessly into depressions, while modified pectoral fins act almost like arms, enabling the fish to walk across the substrate. These fins press into the sand and push forward, inching the monkfish in careful movements until the perfect vantage point is achieved. Then the body vanishes into stillness once again, lure trembling, jaws ready. For prey, the seafloor is no longer a neutral background, but a hunting ground where the very ground itself may open. The monkfish's anatomy is tuned to this ambush lifestyle. The jaw mechanics allow for rapid expansion, with ligaments stretching to form a cavernous gape. Prey are engulfed through suction as well as direct biting, drawn in by the sudden negative pressure created when the mouth opens. The stomach follows suit, capable of remarkable expansion to accommodate meals nearly equal to the fish's own mass. Reports exist of monkfish swallowing diving birds, octopuses and flatfish almost their size, testimony to the elasticity of their design. This ability is not indulgence, but necessity. Ambush predators live by feast and famine, consuming enormous meals when opportunity arises and surviving long intervals in between. Seasonal movements punctuate their otherwise sedentary lives. In many regions, monkfish shift offshore during winter months and return to shallower waters in warmer seasons, tracking prey abundance and breeding opportunities. Females release egg veils, gelatinous sheets that can stretch several meters long, carrying thousands of eggs suspended like beads in a curtain. These drifts float in currents until larvae hatch, dispersing across the shelf before settling into the benthic lifestyle of their parents. Reproduction is costly. Females must be large to produce viable egg veils, and herein lies a danger tied directly to human exploitation. Monkfish are valued in fisheries, particularly for their firm white flesh and livers prized in culinary traditions. But the very traits that make them vulnerable, slow growth, late maturity, and dependence on large females for reproduction, mean that removing breeding females can collapse local stocks. Catching small individuals may dent populations, but removing the large matriarchs eliminates entire generations' worth of potential offspring. Sustainable management requires strict attention to size and season, yet demand often outpaces restraint. The shadow on the sea floor becomes not only a predator but a victim, its invisibility no defense against trawls and nets. Trawling itself interacts destructively with this camouflage master. Monkfish rely on stillness and concealment, their survival tied to the undisturbed continuity of sandy and muddy substrates. Bottom trawls sweep indiscriminately, flattening habitats and scooping up ambush predators along with bycatch. For monkfish, whose strategy is to vanish into the landscape, the intrusion of nets makes invisibility irrelevant. The very substrate that conceals them becomes the instrument of their capture. This collision of evolutionary design with industrial machinery underscores the fragility of benthic predators in the modern ocean. Ecologically, monkfish hold an important place in the food web. By preying on a variety of fish and invertebrates, they regulate populations that might otherwise proliferate unchecked. Their ambushes alter prey behavior, forcing smaller fishes into schooling or avoidance strategies that ripple through ecosystems. They are not apex predators on the scale of sharks or orcas, but their presence exerts a quiet pressure on the balance of benthic life. Remove them, and prey species may flourish unnaturally, shifting competition and destabilizing local dynamics. In this sense, the monkfish's shadow stretches beyond its own ambush zone, influencing entire shelf ecosystems. Their grotesque appearance often fuels misunderstanding. To many divers, a monkfish resembles something monstrous. A head disproportionately large, teeth protruding, eyes small and glinting. Yet the same anatomy that seems monstrous is finely tuned for efficiency. The flattened head provides camouflage. The protruding teeth ensure prey cannot escape. The lure compensates for motionlessness, and the expansive stomach turns feast into long-term survival. What appears grotesque is in fact a symphony of adaptation, a design as elegant in function as any streamlined predator of the open ocean. The closing scene returns to the seafloor, the camera drifting low once again across the sand. At first there is nothing, only ripples and shell fragments. Then, with patient focus, a slight tremor becomes visible, the ilichium trembling faintly, mimicking a worm's wriggle. A small fish approaches, curious, investigating the lure. The sand erupts, the mouth opens, and the fish is gone. Stillness resumes. The monkfish settles back into shadow, indistinguishable from the seafloor, its blueprint intact. The monkfish embodies the paradox of invisibility and impact. It is a predator that shapes ecosystems while remaining unseen, a fish whose survival depends on patience rather than pursuit, and whose existence on continental shelves bridges the worlds of shallow and deep-sea anglerfish. Its story is also a warning that creatures evolved for concealment can be undone by human intrusion, their camouflage powerless against nets and demand. They are, in the truest sense, the shadow on the seafloor, predators who remind us that even the quietest strategies are essential threads in the web of life, and that the sands of the continental shelves hold more than emptiness. They hold mouths, histories, and the unseen consequences of our choices. From above, the sea appears boundless, its horizon a line so distant it seems to curve into infinity. Then, from beneath the surface, a shadow rises, vast, deliberate, and slow. The drone's eye captures it first as a swelling distortion, then as form, a living continent of muscle gliding just beneath the skin of the ocean. The back breaks the surface, smooth and slate-grey, stretching longer than a basketball court. A geyser of vapor erupts skyward, hanging in the air before being swept away by wind. This is the blue whale, the largest animal to ever live, a creature so massive that its existence appears to defy biology itself. The camera follows as the whale descends. Below, a river of krill pulses through the water, a cloud of life stretching hundreds of meters. The whale adjusts its angle, jaws opening into an arc so wide it could engulf a truck. With a sudden acceleration, the animal lunges directly into the swarm. The mouth balloons outward, pleats in its throat expanding like concertina bellows to hold tens of thousands of liters of water and prey. For an instant, it becomes less a whale than a vessel, a moving reservoir of ocean. Then the jaws close, the tongue, heavier than an elephant, forces water back through baleen plates, and a slurry of krill slides down the throat. One lunge, one colossal mouthful. But herein lies the paradox. Each lunge is so costly, burning such enormous amounts of oxygen and muscle energy, that the success of the whale's day depends on prey density. A perfect lunge can fuel the journey for hours. A wasted one is almost catastrophic. This is the math of the impossible, a life balanced on the efficiency of singular, monumental bites. Blue whales are migrants on a scale difficult to imagine. They spend summers in high-latitude feeding grounds, gorging on krill in nutrient-rich waters churned by polar currents. In winter, they journey thousands of kilometers toward equatorial breeding zones, where food is scarce but conditions allow for calving. These migrations demand immense energy reserves, and so each feeding season becomes a race to pack enough calories into blubber stores to last the journey. Their day-to-day lives reflect this balance, following vertical movements of prey. Krill rise toward the surface at night and descend into deeper layers during the day, and the whales follow, rising and sinking through water columns like living elevators in sync with the rhythms of plankton. Their decision-making while feeding reveals a kind of behavioral economics. In sparse krill fields, they may skim slowly, filtering small amounts of prey without lunging. When krill density crosses a threshold, they commit to the explosive energy of lunge feeding, mouths ballooning outward in massive strikes. These decisions are not casual but critical, each choice shaping the balance of calories gained versus calories spent. In essence, the largest animal on Earth is engaged in constant arithmetic, weighing energy against opportunity in every dive. The scale of their physiology underscores the improbability of their existence. A blue whale's heart is the size of a small car, weighing nearly half a ton, pumping blood through arteries so large a human child could crawl through them. With each beat, this heart moves hundreds of liters of blood, driving oxygen to muscles and tissues that fuel dives lasting 10 to 20 minutes. Their lungs hold nearly 1,000 gallons of air, but oxygen management goes beyond sheer volume. Whales store oxygen in muscle-bound myoglobin, allowing them to function while submerged far longer than their surface reserves would suggest. Every dive is a ballet of conservation, managing limited oxygen against the demands of colossal motion. Communication extends their reach beyond what eyes can see. Blue whales produce calls in infrasound, frequencies too low for human ears to detect, but powerful enough to travel across ocean basins. These calls, deep and resonant, serve as both contact and navigation, echoing through water like sonar signals among leviathans. A whale in one hemisphere can, in principle, be heard by another thousands of kilometers away, their voices bridging entire oceans. To live at such scale demands communication at equal magnitude. Even sleep requires adaptation to size. Blue whales, like other cetaceans, cannot fully surrender consciousness, for they must surface to breathe. Instead, they drift in states of unihemispheric rest, one half of the brain idling while the other remains alert. Sometimes, pods of whales drift together, rising and sinking in unison, bodies suspended like drifting zeppelins in the twilight zone. Their slumber is never complete, but it is sufficient to sustain migrations that span hemispheres. The conservation narrative of blue whales is inseparable from human history. Once their populations were reduced to fragments by industrial whaling, hunted for oil and baleen with a ruthlessness that brought them to the brink of extinction. International bans have allowed partial recovery, but threats persist. Ship strikes remain a leading cause of mortality. The very shipping lanes that fuel human commerce bisect whale migratory routes, and collisions with vessels can kill even animals of such size. Solutions have emerged in the form of slow-speed zones and rerouted lanes, yet enforcement is inconsistent. Noise pollution adds another invisible danger. The modern ocean is saturated with sound from container ships, oil exploration, and naval sonar. For whales that depend on infrasound communication, chronic noise can mask signals, severing connections across distance. To a blue whale, whose society is stretched across thousands of kilometers, such disruption is as isolating as silence. Conservationists now call for quiet corridors, sanctuaries not only of space but of sound, where the ocean can once again carry voices unbroken. Climate change adds a final layer of complexity. As oceans warm, plankton distributions shift, and with them the krill upon which blue whales depend. In some regions, krill biomass declines, threatening the very foundation of whale diets. The math of the impossible grows tighter. When prey density falls below thresholds, even the largest mouths cannot sustain the largest bodies. Protecting blue whales, therefore, is not only about shielding individuals, but about preserving the planktonic engines of the sea, the microscopic life that underpins leviathan survival. The closing image returns to the drone's view. A whale glides just beneath the surface, its back curving endlessly, blowholes exhaling vapor into the sky. From above, the sheer length overwhelms perspective. From below, the vastness eclipses light. It dives once more, pleats folding tight, body angling downward. In the depths, a krill river glimmers faint red as sunlight fades. The whale opens its jaws, commits to the lunge, and rolls the dice of energy and survival. One perfect strike, one mouthful that carries the weight of a body the size of eternity. The blue whale is in every sense the math of the impossible, a living proof that biology can stretch the boundaries of physics and ecology until they nearly break. Its heart beats like a drum for oceans, its body spans the scale of continents, and its survival hinges on microscopic prey invisible to the naked eye. In its life lies a paradox. The greatest of all creatures dependent on the smallest, the titan of Earth balanced on the density of krill. The fact that it exists at all is a testament to the elegance of evolution's arithmetic. The morning tide is calm, the sea still holding the silver blush of dawn. Among the swaying blades of seagrass, two shapes move with a delicacy that belies the currents pressing around them. A pair of seahorses, small, upright, and improbable, drift together in a slow, spiraling dance. Their tails, coiled like corkscrews, tether briefly to the same blade of eelgrass before they release and rise again, mirroring each other's movements in perfect synchrony. For several minutes they seem suspended between stillness and motion, the fragile choreography of fidelity written in water. Then the male's belly swells and contracts, a pouch pulsing with hidden life. With a final shiver, he releases a glitter storm of fry, tiny, translucent forms erupting from his body and scattering like sparks through the grass. The male, not the female, has given birth. This reversal of roles introduces the core mystery of seahorses. Why, among all vertebrates, did male pregnancy evolve here? In the competitive theater of the ocean, where survival depends on efficiency, evolution rarely rewrites reproductive scripts without reason. For seahorses, the answer lies in the challenges of shallow tidal nurseries. Females, freed from the burden of gestation, can produce eggs more frequently. Males, by carrying offspring in specialized pouches, ensure higher survival rates in turbulent environments where eggs drifting freely would be swept away or devoured. The brood pouch solves a problem. It transforms fragile external embryos into sheltered, nourished young, incubated in the body of the father. Male pregnancy is not a curiosity, but an evolutionary solution to the chaos of coastal life. The brood pouch itself is a marvel of biology. Far from being a simple bag, it functions like a placenta. Capillaries line its walls, transporting oxygen to developing embryos while removing waste. Sodium and calcium levels within the pouch are regulated, preparing fry for the osmotic transition from womb-like shelter to seawater. Hormones synchronize development between father and offspring, ensuring embryos hatch at a time that maximizes their survival. In effect, the male's pouch becomes a controlled environment, a miniature laboratory for life. Each brood may contain dozens, even hundreds of young, though only a fraction will survive the gauntlet of predators once released. The survival lottery plays out on the edges of seagrass meadows, where juveniles cling to blades, trying to remain invisible in a world of mouths. Seahorse behavior weaves intimacy with pragmatism. Some species form monogamous pairs, reinforcing bonds through daily dances and tail linkages, their fidelity written not in territory but in ritual. Others adopt seasonal pairings, coupling for months before shifting to new partners. In both cases, synchronization between male and female is critical. Females deposit eggs into the male's pouch through an ovipositor, timing it with his readiness to incubate. The process is delicate. If either partner falters, the transfer may fail, costing both valuable reproductive effort. In such precarious environments, coordination is survival. Daily life for seahorses is anchored, literally. With no speed to evade predators and no armor to withstand them, seahorses rely on stealth and attachment. Their prehensile tails coil tightly around seagrass stems, mangrove roots or corals, anchoring them against surge and current. From these perches, they feed with patience. The long, tubular snout creates a vacuum when snapped forward, sucking in tiny crustaceans in an instant. The strike is silent, the prey gone before it even perceives danger. Unlike active hunters, seahorses are pickers of opportunity, harvesting plankton and amphipods from the microworld swirling around them. Color changes ripple across their skin, subtle but significant. Pigment cells expand or contract, shifting patterns to match seagrass, corals, or algae. This camouflage is imperfect. Their distinctive outlines betray them to sharp-eyed predators, but it is often enough to reduce detection. In some species, color also plays a role in courtship, with males and females brightening during dances, their bodies signaling readiness and recognition. For animals so fragile, every advantage, even a momentary illusion of invisibility, matters. The ecological significance of seahorses extends beyond their charm. They are indicators of habitat health, particularly in seagrass meadows and mangrove fringes. Where seahorses thrive, the ecosystem is usually intact, offering shelter, prey abundance, and structural complexity. When seahorses vanish, it often signals degradation. Seagrass uprooted by trawls, mangroves cleared for development, or coastlines smothered by pollution. Their presence is a living measure of ecological integrity, yet their vulnerability is profound. The curio trade, long fueled by demand for dried seahorses in traditional medicine and as trinkets, removes millions from the wild each year. Though small, their slow reproductive cycle and high juvenile mortality make populations unable to withstand heavy extraction. Habitat loss compounds the threat. Seagrass meadows, vital nurseries for countless species, are among the most endangered ecosystems, declining globally under coastal development and climate change. For seahorses, this loss is catastrophic. Fathers cannot brood where there is no grass to anchor, no nursery to release their young. Conservation efforts increasingly focus on habitat restoration. Seagrass restoration projects where shoots are replanted and protected bring back not only the grasses but the fathers who rely on them. In regions where protection is enforced, seahorse populations rebound, proving their resilience when given refuge. Sustainable aquaculture now offers an alternative to wild capture for the aquarium trade, reducing pressure on natural populations. Yet the battle is ongoing, requiring recognition that seahorses are more than curiosities. They are keystone species in fragile coastal mosaics. From a physiological standpoint, seahorses stretch our understanding of reproductive roles. Male pregnancy shifts the costs of reproduction, redistributing investment between sexes. By doing so, it allows pairs to produce more offspring in shorter cycles, maximizing reproductive success in habitats where mortality is high. It is a radical departure from the vertebrate norm, but one that makes sense when viewed through the lens of tidal nurseries. In this environment, carrying offspring internally, away from predators and turbulence, is more valuable than mobility or independence. The male, by shouldering this burden, transforms weakness into strategy. The closing scene returns to the dawn meadow. The pair has finished their dance, and the male hovers momentarily, belly contracting. Tiny fry spill forth, scattering in the light like a constellation released from his body. They drift upward, some clinging to blades of grass, others vanishing into the plankton. The father watches briefly before anchoring once more, his body swaying with the tide. For the fry, the lottery has begun. For the father, the cycle will repeat, as long as there is sea grass to anchor and currents to sustain. The seahorse is, in the truest sense, the pregnant father, a creature that rewrites rules, overturns assumptions, and demonstrates that evolution is not bound by tradition, but by necessity. It is a reminder that in the shifting worlds of tidal shallows, survival may demand not only new strategies, but new roles altogether.